Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Vogel around to the point. The CC. Reinhardt got in the way but couldn't clear. Vogel tries to walk out in front. It was Frey in the crease and played away from Hart. Here's Reinhardt on the counter. Sam Reinhardt scores!
10 seconds left. 2-1 Panthers. A dream 30 years in the making is a reality. The Florida Panthers have won the Stanley Cup. One Stanley is coming home. You always will have a place in South Florida. Oh my God! The Panthers have won the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history. Yeah!
That ball is ripped to right center. This time Laviolette is there and it goes off the wall. Bare hands fires it in. Rounding and coming home. We got to play at the plate. Safe at the plate. They missed the tag. Swing and a miss. And for the first time, Rocky Top reaches the mountaintop of college baseball. They are the World Series champions.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. You can also catch us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of the places you get your podcast as well. What's up, DB?
Hi.
How you feel about that? Rocky Top has reached the mountaintop. How too cheesy? Too on the nose?
Yep. That was
a little bit much.
That was one of those predictables. I mean, we all can't be like, I don't know, the Kevin Kuglers of the world that just come up with stuff and you're like, wow, that is pretty sweet.
It is better than the like Jim Nance top dog, whatever UConn wins, though. I'll take the Rocky Top is at the mountaintop over.
Yeah. I mean, and plus we're spoiled. I mean, we've been blessed. We've had some tremendous.
Oh, yeah. Our standard's high.
Yeah. We've had some tremendous on-air talent.
Whether we got Greg Sharp or it's Johnny the Bish.
Hey,
whether it's Kevin Coog.
Bishop's yesterday was kind of low-key funny.
Dude, he was baking yesterday.
I love Baylor. I love Shireman.
Yes.
I was like, I don't remember that.
I don't either.
But that
and
was
I try and listen some.
But that was sensational.
Yeah,
so
that was awesome.
I always like to give
He touched it. He touched it.
off the Hizzle Jay Bizzle. I like to give him his love because I get what it's like now, and I don't know if it's ever going to be in my personality, all the way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can lean into the home broadcast,
go full homer.
Go like, and it is the biggest difference between being on the network and like the Big Ten network. So, because I don't have to be biased, but we had to have that talk yesterday about the schedule.
Yeah.
So I, with the big boss and Lincoln, Jason's just making sure everything is everything.
Everything is everything.
Yeah. I may have one little snafu, but we'll figure it out.
One ain't bad.
Oh, heck,
that's
no.
pretty good.
No,
because you guys have a lot of Thursday night games this year, right?
Yeah. And they moved one that was on Friday night.
Yeah, for the Illinois game.
So, I mean, shout out to Morrow and Kirkman,
getting
two
it done.
Fantastic ADs. I mess with Morrow now over at WS because he has, his son's pretty good.
Yeah.
So now he's like playing in both worlds. He's like admin and he's like fan and he's like dad.
Fan.
Yeah.
There's nobody more intense than the fan dads.
Yeah, he's great too. I saw him at the field house the other day. And, he's just a guy that I like.
Yeah.
So I rubbed him on the back the first time. Can't remember where I was going. And I did it on the way out. And I said, he's like, hey, what's up? I said, they usually charge me like, people at the casino get like $5-10 a minute for that, right? Like, those are good massages. And he just chuckled. He's a good dude. But I like to see, it's cool. Well, I don't know if cool is the word, but like, Coach Manji's daughters were playing college soccer.
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting when you watch people that do a job overseeing of young people
to see how they
be overseers of young people, like their own.
It's always like it's a totally different person a lot of times.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. It was a weird rock. It was a weird thing last night, just because number one, full disclosure,
Mhm.
I did try to practice that slide. So my back is it's a little. It let me know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was like trying to simulate it, and I did it like full go, and I did it like full go again, and I was like, man, that was pretty creative. Because like, just try it fast.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's an
I'm gonna hurt
incredible slide,
myself.
and at the time, you didn't think that would be. Just
Yeah.
tacked on another.
Yeah.
It actually turned out to be the difference.
Yeah, how the ending of that game last night
It was very
weird.
It was strange.
Because I'm sitting there, okay, so it's like it's 6-1, right?
Yeah, yes.
And then
you look up and all of a sudden it's 6-3.
well, like so A&M tacks on 1, and you're like, okay, 6-2, whatever, and then 6-3, and you're like, it's probably fine still in terms of because obviously
Now first and second one out, then you're like,
you know what's weird
I
though?
think we may have something.
As I'm watching the end of that game, I still felt like I never felt threatened.
Yeah, the funny thing about your whole thought process when I asked you yesterday before we left about the game was I can't you kind of worded it something like this. You go, yeah, I mean 1-2 top 2 seeds, but I don't know. I just clearly think that Tennessee's better because I asked you, should they be 2.5 to 1?
Yeah, because they were like minus 280 or something.
Yeah,
right?
and
I said that was high, but I thought they were clearly should be the favorite.
Yeah, and I was a little caught up. I was like,
yeah, you're a little taken aback.
I was like, really? They don't. And maybe it's the arms that I don't love. I mean, they're obviously plenty good enough. I mean,
Yeah.
and A&M has a pretty complete lineup. But it's just their ability to score almost seemingly when they want to.
It's their lineup is relentless. And I don't think that's something I appreciated until I saw them in person and saw them do it against Florida State. Or I'm just like, that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember if we said this on air or off air, but Florida State had 3 separate 4-run leads on that team.
And you never felt good.
Never, like 6-2 didn't feel good. 9-5 didn't feel good. 11-7 in the 8th didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And you were just, that lineup is relentless. It is it's almost oppressive, like to opposing pitchers. It is an incredible lineup. And that's where I just go, no one's got enough arms left for that.
And the weird thing is because I was vibing with KP. I mean, obviously he knows as well as anyone. The shorter the staffs were last night, the more it would favor A&M.
Yeah.
And A&M only threw the 3 arms.
Yeah. They got about what they wanted.
Yeah.
KP said 2. I mean, 3 is, I bet, about all you can ask for.
Yep.
Right. And it still didn't matter because that lineup is so good for Tennessee.
Yeah. Just the ability to swipe big bags at a time.
And they can, I know most of their, I think over 50%. So technically most of their runs, at least a majority of their runs over the course of the season came off of home runs. Yeah. But they do scare me in other ways.
Yeah. I mean,
because that's the difference between them and Florida, right?
They combined for 26 hits and still only had 11 runs.
Yeah. Like, that's kind of crazy.
But the staffs were pretty solid.
Like, to me, the biggest difference between like a Tennessee team and a Florida team is Florida doesn't scare me unless they're hitting home runs.
Yeah.
Tennessee's lineup scares me all the time.
Yeah, just because they put the ball in play a little more.
Yeah, like, and they can.
Although I think last night they had six strikeouts total.
They did, yeah.
Which isn't, I mean,
that's not a crazy number.
No.
No.
Would you like to take a stab at how many A&M had?
11.
4, 6, 8, 12.
14?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't think it was that much.
Yeah. After like the 8th one, I was thinking of my degenerate Aaron.
Yeah.
You know, because he would always, it seemed like inevitably twice a week, he'd send me a text during a Nebraska game. And all it would say is, too many strikeouts. too many Ks.
You know, like,
I'm like 14. Ugh. 14 of your 27 outs.
God, that's a lot.
Were by via the K.
I know that it's not, it's a very, at this point, kind of old school mentality to be like, hey, you got to try and put the ball in play a little bit more and whatever. And, it's more in professional baseball than in college because you see a little bit more diversity of styles.
But in college, you can also make up for it too.
Yes.
Because it's so hard to get guys out in the majors.
Yes. But I just, like, there's a part of me, and I don't know if it's just aesthetically or if there's actually good baseball reasons. I think there's good baseball reasons. Like I would much rather have guys making contact.
Yeah.
If for no other reason.
I mean, you were part of a nutty game last night.
Yeah.
With the Sox and the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
I thought you guys, there were probably 4 or 5 games in Major League Baseball where I thought teams were left for dead. I mean, the Mariners got ran down from behind late. It happened to the Blue Jays. I think the Cardinals had to end up holding off the Braves. By the way, the Padres and Nationals was pretty exciting, but I still don't. I'm not gonna steal the shine from Tennessee because I think we do have to talk about your guy, Tony. TV. No, there's only one TV. That's my guy, Tony.
Tony V.
Yep. I'm a little concerned about the Braves this year, finally.
Yeah.
But I'm only going to whisper that. I'm not going to say that loud because I remember,
I'm not ready to
9,
say it with
10,
my
11
chest yet.
games under 500 at the break, and they were in the World Series. So I'm going to chill.
Yeah, I'm not
on like throwing dirt on the Braves.
I'm not ready to say it with my chest yet, but yeah, I don't know. Losing Acuna again, like I don't know. I don't know if this is the year for them. Seems like things aren't breaking the way. And
look at that slide. Just go try that.
No, I'm not going to try that. I will be in a hospital.
I mean, it was an incredible full speed deal.
I could barely slide when I did play baseball. That was by far.
Hey, did you see Moore tear his bunda up? Yeah. He had I'm like, ooh, good to see he looked like the almost professionals not being able to do it either. He looks, you see him up. I didn't see him close just from the field, from the booth, but he looks like a musclehead.
Christian Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he wears a little bit baggy clothes or baggy uniform, but I think he's
I mean, that hole was like,
I mean, it was worse than the hole in the pants of the cop that Scotty Scheffler allegedly assaulted. So I don't know if we're gonna get felony charges on the infield.
Let it go.
I'm not gonna do that.
Let it go.
I hope Christian Moore is okay after that assault that he suffered. Wow. Those pants are destroyed beyond repair.
What about the smoke bomb guys, man? Did they earn it? Like he's wild, Patello. Look at him.
Yeah, like those guys aren't getting brought up on felony charges.
Hey, Shane, aren't you the guy? Aren't you afraid of smoke bombs like on the 4th of July and stuff?
I don't like them.
Or do you do that for all your gender reveals?
They're loud.
How many kids you got, Shane? That you know of?
I was more talking about his personality, but
2 or 3.
I mean, whatever.
2 or 3 personalities or kids?
Both.
Hey.
That's the knock at the door you don't want to get.
Yeah.
Or should I say 5 or 7?
We're 5 and 7. We got to practice.
Yeah.
No, quit practicing that, Shane. You're gonna end up with more than that.
I talked to him Sunday. He is.
Yeah.
God, he's spectacular.
How's he doing?
Well, he appears to be good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like it.
I'm
got himself a little running back last night.
Yeah.
Officially, finally came out on his own.
That was so weird.
Yeah. It was just like everybody else, like, yeah, he's committed, and then he didn't put something out until yesterday.
So I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute.
Because you asked me during a break.
I was like, I said, do we want to go here? Because I don't think he himself has said anything.
And he hadn't yet, so we didn't.
And I just didn't want to steal the thunder.
Yeah, but Mekhi Nelson coming into reclassify. You don't see that in football very often.
No.
Reclassifying down.
You see it in hoops.
Or up, I guess.
You see it in hoops.
Yeah, it's less physical. You don't have the.
So that's want to do the math? Ready?
Sure.
Gabe. Ramir. Emmett,
Dowdell,
Dowdell, Mekhi Nelson, and Parker. That's 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're cool with 6 scholarship running backs.
Parker won't be here till next year,
but that'll be. Yeah, that's a good point.
So 5.
So we have 5.
Yeah.
Did we still want one more, or
we've gone?
We've gone back and forth over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like as a. But I don't think we care now about scholarships by position.
I wanted more than 3, like before Dowdell came in.
Yeah.
So when it was,
I think the only position we care about, and we'll convince ourselves, it just depends on if we think Dylan is really
that guy or not.
You probably do care at quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
we've seen it.
You have to a little.
I mean, I'm sure we're not alone.
I need 3 scholarship quarterbacks.
Like Michael Jackson. But
like a man in the mirror.
You are not alone.
Oh, okay.
I hope I'm not alone on this. It just seems like Nebraska more than not, and maybe I was like hold my beer, but it just seems like more times than not we get down to the nitty gritty at quarterback.
Yeah, end up with a walk-on in there or something like a third string that you're
right.
like,
I mean, I have Troy State in my head. I have Purdue in my head. I have.
Yeah, I mean, you got like the Riker Fives. You got
that
the
was
Noah
Purdue.
Vedrals. You've got some.
Yeah, it just seems like we get there more often.
Yeah, you get down to the walk-on a lot.
So even though I much rather defend the non-mobile quarterback, it seems like that the price you pay for a mobile quarterback or a run-heavy quarterback offense, is guys we lose a lot of guys because we have been super quarterback centric.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, ideally, right? The best.
I mean, isn't it? You just did a quick laundry list in your head. It seems like
it's a lot
down to the nitty gritty,
100%,
quite a bit.
Yeah, way more than it seems like anybody ever should.
And who was the last QB to start every game? Was it Magnum TA?
Armstrong did at one point. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, at one point in his career he did. So that's been.
I love that guy.
8 years.
You talk about a resilient, just grind guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tommy Armstrong.
I do feel, he's
and he loves dogs.
It's my guy.
Yeah.
What kind of dogs you got?
I'll share. Big meatheads.
Okay, like mine.
Yeah, except like they look the part.
Yeah.
Yours are kind of like mixed muddy.
Yeah.
His
are just like straight up pit bulls.
His don't look like that.
Yeah. I like my little mutts.
I think that dude's feeding them like fillets and no, seriously, he's like really into dog food. Like
an Andrew.
Yeah, maybe that's where Gary got it from.
Who?
Because Nate wants to do his own dog food too.
Yeah.
And listen, I welcome it because it's extortion out here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's getting any cheaper.
Fudge.
I think
the products are getting worse.
I think it's getting more expensive, but a lot of people are going to kind of like that for that fresh dog food.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff you have to like refrigerate and whatever. That's gonna be more expensive, but it's gonna be better for your dog.
Yeah, I don't know what the
I don't know what the price point is.
I don't know what the trade-off
where it's
is.
like because listen, like if you buy good kibble, like it's good for your dog.
You don't mean the brand, you just mean like food.
Yeah.
100%.
If you buy like high quality dry dog food, like you're good.
I don't know how we went from Tennessee and Rocky Top to dog food, or Mackay Nelson,
number of scholarships at quarterback, walk-on quarterbacks. Who's the last guy to start all the games? Tommy Armstrong. That's pit bulls.
Nice job.
Pit bulls and dog food.
Nice.
No? Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Okay. Hot take.
You like how I followed that ADHD train right there? I just wove through the traffic.
It's pretty good.
I look like Johnny Rogers taking that punt back, just weaving through the traffic.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So, hey, that sound like a bunch of baloney, Coach?
Yeah, right.
Or does it sound like a beautiful question, Coach?
No. No.
I think it might.
No.
Coming up on the show today, we are going to talk a lot of hockey as well. We've got Eddie Garcia from Fox Sports Radio to wrap up the Stanley Cup, which also ended last night. And then we will talk to Phil Stanton to put a bow on the college baseball season as well. But speaking of hockey.
Yeah, man.
It felt like, and because I don't really know.
I'm curious to hear what you say here.
I was rooting for Edmonton. Full disclosure, I was rooting for history.
Such a hater.
I'm not a hater on you. I like history. I like historic stuff.
Why can't you just want your friend to be right?
Well, I mean, I wasn't mad that you.
According
were right.
to you, it happens so infrequently.
No, I think you're right all the time. You're the one that says I'm never right.
Well.
Hater.
Well.
But just for saying I'm not right a lot. You do like I hate to admit this, but you are right. That happens a lot for somebody who's never right, Like that's weird.
I think it's only the compliment thing.
It seems like it's
when I have to I feel like one of those animals that's spitting up a fur ball.
That's called a cat. Cats.
What, are they the only ones?
They're the only ones I know of.
Well, my dog hacks sometimes.
Well, yeah, he's not. If he's coughing up fur balls, you need to take him in.
Well, I don't know if anything comes out. I've seen some bile.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
Not
little,
Simone.
Does he get the twisties?
Wow,
it's the callback.
Clever. Very clever. You're like, what the?
Yeah, I mean,
let me guess.
I think
going
so.
to say you felt like Edmonton was more in control of that.
No.
Okay.
No. What I was going to say is it felt like after that flurry with about 3 minutes left where it was chaotic in front of Bobrovsky, and they got a few,
Early?
No, about 3 minutes left in the third.
Oh, in the third. Okay. Oh, yeah.
And-
oh, yeah. This is even before they emptied the net.
Yes, yeah. Because they didn't empty the net until like right at a minute almost.
Yeah, about a minute 20. Yeah. Who's counting?
But that stretch, I think in between, it was about 2.5 and 4 minutes. There were several kind of interactions right in front of Bobrovsky, and when they weren't able to score there, I was like, yeah, it's not happening. And because they looked, I mean, they mentioned on the broadcast too, but Edmonton just looked gassed. The last 2 minutes, they looked just. I don't know if it was emotional. I don't know if it was physical.
Well, I mean, they pretty much controlled the last 9 minutes of that game. I mean, just the pressure.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're Florida and you play the way that they do, because they finally got back to, the forechecking and being all grimy on the boards and getting loose pucks. Because I thought they got a couple of unfortunate calls. Like, I still don't understand the tripping call against Tkachuk. And if they would have scored on that power play, I would have been I just didn't. I don't know. It was just weird. I mean, the guy clearly lost his lost his balance. He's sliding across the ice. He's trying to protect himself going into contact. You get a tripping call over that? But I did like Maurice, although his expression doesn't change much. Did you realize he was 4-0? He's 4-0 in game sevens, but never won a cup.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so it just wasn't when it counted.
Yeah.
Because
although it kind of was when it counted, because it was 7, but yeah, he just never got to a game 7 when it
Shane,
counted.
did you realize that franchise had been such a laughing stock? Because that angle and during the post game, I thought was a little much.
Yeah, I didn't.
Was it that much of a franchise in futility?
I don't know about that. I mean, that was
They were using words like embarrassments, and frustrations. And I get the frustrations part, but maybe the embarrassments were from poor records.
Florida definitely would have had embarrassment if they would have lost last night. That's where the embarrassment would have came. That's the only embarrassment that would have happened.
So all day on talk radio, you know what the deal was why Edmonton had the emotional advantage. We even talked about their mental coaches and guys that they brought in that they've employed on staff to like help visualize success and the emotional edge. And
I do think Edmonton had like a mental advantage going into last night.
I don't know how that Bobrovsky got Sunday off.
Yeah. Well, and because there's obviously you've got.
Go ahead then, Sergey.
Obviously, you've got the fact that Florida probably feels some sort of pressure to not choke this thing away.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got your guy that's been a wall in Bobrovsky, who's turned into Swiss cheese over the last couple games. And then he gets Sunday off and becomes a whole narrative. Like I did think Edmonton I didn't know if they were going to win because of it, but I did think they were probably in a better headspace.
Yeah.
Like that's a really tough spot for Florida to win that game. Like that's really impressive for them to like return to what got them there.
How thirsty you think they are drinking from old Lord Stanley's cup, Ravi?
I don't know, man. I hope they clean that thing.
What if I know, I always say that.
Like
I'd still
drink out of it because it's like an iconic deal, but I'm like probably washing my mouth out.
And it's like shaking, or Gensel said, like that thing is heavy too, man. You gotta be thirsty. Yeah. What do you think's in there?
I don't know. That guy with the gloves has probably been cleaning it all year. I think it can be dirty for a day or two.
In the building, that's a pretty cool thing.
Get like solvent in your mouth or something. I don't even know.
Stop it.
We will be back. We will be back.
near side. The power play's over. Shot tip, they score. Rodriguez got it on net. It was tipped out in front, and the Panthers have the first one. Here in Dean 7 for Hagen. Far side of the oh, Rodriguez got it on net.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
He said General George Patton said in World War II, make a decision and do it like hell. And Tony just went all in, changing pitchers, who to bat, win the steal, whatever it is. And that's what you do in these big games, right? You can't second guess yourself. And he's done that all season. So he's a heck of a coach. And it was fun to watch all game.
We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're talking about Tennessee winning a national championship. We're talking about Florida winning a Stanley Cup.
Just weird, right? We just talk about, I feel like we've been talking about this for a couple months now. You just need to catch some breaks. We've given numerous examples.
Yeah.
Right? You misplay a ball in the outfield. You don't get a check swing call. You a key injury, right? Because I always talk about it. You want to make runs. You got to have a little health luck.
Yeah.
A&M didn't get it. Looked like a different team offensively.
Yeah.
Without Montgomery. So I mean, how about the second goal of the night last night, where it's And I get it. Those guys do practice deflections, and you have to have some courage. But the hand-eye coordination, because even on the breakaway, when Edmonton came right back to score, that was about a half an inch away from being a spectacular 1v1 save. Because it was the angle of Bobrovsky's pad that elevated the puck. He got a pad on that.
Yeah, he got a piece of it.
And I'm like, that would have been. I mean, just imagine guys coming at you. You know, he's got the drag. There's the great handle, and it's like the lift. And I don't know. You need some good fortune in sports. You just do.
And I'll be totally honest.
Did you think Indiana was as bad as they were against the Celtics? And you look back, and nobody's going to talk about that series. I mean, Boston could have easily been down 3-1.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like
I said that I think before Game 4 or before Game 5. I was like, this really easily could be a 2-2-3-1 series the other way.
And we were kind of like, is Boston not good? Like you?
That's why we weren't sure if Boston was that
Sometimes
good.
you just gotta
get a little lucky.
You need good fortune.
Think about, man, this is a weird one to pull. I think when the Celtics won their title in 2008, they went to 7 against the Hawks in the first round.
Oh, I know.
That was a bad Hawks team.
And looked pretty
average doing it.
And looked really good against the Lakers.
The Lakers by the finals.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you know, that's one of the things I struggle with hockey is I know that there's like that second goal with the deflection. He's screening the goalie, Skinner or Sinner. Skinner? I'm confusing the tennis player and the
Skinner.
Okay. Sinner is the tennis player. I'm having a moment here.
It's okay.
Too many inner names.
Did Verhaeghe look like he had a good angle?
No.
On the second goal?
No.
No, it didn't. That thing ekes through.
You know, and so you've got this.
I mean, look at this.
Yeah, like what is that? what are we doing? Like there's this.
And he's got to be thinking, close off his angle, get to near post. I know he's probably kicking him.
Oh, yeah. And that was probably, I mean, that one felt less fluky than a lot of the other ones where, like, especially the first one with the deflection. He's screening Skinner. It's a blind deflection. And it's like, oh, we scored. Cool. Like a lot of hockey goals feel like that to me. And it's probably partly because I don't understand what's happening to the degree that, you know, hockey people do. But it also feels like 60% of the goals are like, pretty haphazard.
By the end of the night, did you think Connor was going to get the award?
Yeah, I did, just because he was allowed to get in the open ice so much, and he's so good. And you don't see teams lose like that.
This is that stretch I was talking about.
Oh yeah, he's just sprawling.
Yeah,
you don't see teams like that lose when they have clearly the best player.
Mm-hmm. We talk about that in basketball all the time.
Like
the guy with the
all
best,
things being equal, usually the team with the best player wins.
Even if things aren't equal, usually that unequals things. Usually,
I mean, McDavid is just sensational.
Yeah,
it's just such a hard. It's just such a hard championship to win. Just imagine how long ago we've been talking about this.
Yeah, it's been 2 full months, almost 2.5.
It's incredible.
It's an incredibly long playoff.
Well, it was the longest season they've ever had, 256 days or whatever it was.
Yeah. And shout out to my man, JB and KC.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got the great odds.
What did he get it at?
I think when he put it in.
Because when you said it was
plus, I think 560.
Really? Because when you said it was like plus 190.
No.
Or plus 300.
700. The series playoffs hadn't started yet. It was plus 750 to win it. They were the second seed. They were the second.
When did you? Because at one
point, remember who got mad at me? Oh, Rosen.
Yeah. Because at one point
he wasn't. He's like, well, I don't know about that. I would make the rank or
Dallas. He would like Dallas.
Dallas the fave, and I was like, oh, okay. But so it went 700, 750, like 780, 810. But you didn't get to the Western. You didn't get to Dallas until 8:10 because it went Carolina.
Yeah,
Florida. Was it the Avs?
So your guy that took that, he's drinking out of the cup this morning. You gotta assume
he's probably working. He has he builds stuff like he's
got a real job.
They build big building. Yeah, he's got a real job.
Let's get to TK real quick here. Wanted to revisit some Nebraska quarterback talk that we had yesterday. I don't even remember what did we talk about quarterbacks yesterday.
I think expectations.
Oh yeah, true freshman expectations.
Yeah. Did you see JV's tweet? Because I think
Uh-uh.
that stat, I didn't want to shoot my shot. I think those stats we talked about as a quarterback. Look up Josh Weiss.
Let's get to TK here while I look up that tweet. TK, what's going on, bud?
Good morning, fellas. How we doing?
TK, what's up? You always sound like you're on the move. Are you walking? Are you a jogger? Do you have the dogs out? Like, are you enjoying the weather?
I just got done taking out the dogs. Right now, I'm driving to the gym.
Oh, no. Do you see any finches out this morning? I haven't seen any for a couple of weeks.
No finches. I was in Colorado because my wife's crazy this weekend. She ran a half marathon for fun.
Yeah. Oh, great.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
I practice
this
difficult
giant
slides,
raven.
and you guys run half marathons. See, we're the same.
Yeah. I saw this giant raven. It was probably about the size of my whole midsection.
TK.
This is a huge bird.
I think I still have it in my pictures. I took a picture of one that was sitting on my deck, and I'm still traumatized. It's
no wonder why people were scared of that in 300 years ago.
Yeah. That's why they don't quote that thing anymore. Isn't that what Poe said? I got to show it to you. I got to see if I can find it. It was.
Yeah, send it over.
The talent. So, and birds like that, they're talons, right? Or are they claws or whatever?
I don't know at what point it crosses over
talons.
from a claw to a talon.
I don't know. These things look like
I think
would.
I think birds are technically talons.
Okay.
I think claws have to be somewhat retractable.
Oh, that makes sense. Like a cat, like a big cat.
This dude is
because dogs don't have claws.
Yeah, they have
nails.
Yeah. That's a good distinction. I never thought about that.
TK, who knows that?
Bro, I've watched Jeopardy every day for 7.5 years.
Dude, I love Jeopardy. Jeopardy's great.
Hey, full disclosure, I do too.
It's incredible.
I'm still trying to figure out the Jeopardy Roku hack. Apparently there's a hack on Roku where you can play Jeopardy.
Oh, you can play it?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
TK, you might have to tell us
it's
how to
just
do that.
if you ask your Amazon Home or whatever, you can play Jeopardy on that.
Oh,
dang, we may have to Zoom and have you walk me through it because
I want to start playing some Jeopardy.
Me too. But anyway, what's up with the QB talk?
Okay, so Ravi yesterday thought I was a little crazy, and I do think that my numbers that I said, 2 to 5 touchdown to interception ratio.
I just said that would be a really good number. 2.5 to 1 would be a great number,
especially for freshmen.
Yeah,
right. I just think that if Nebraska is going to be successful, that is most likely closer to his numbers than not, because they're not going to be successful because they're throwing the ball 40 to 50 times. They're going to be successful because they can hand the ball off and get 4 yards a carry consistently.
TK, we're such nerds. I broke it down, run pass ratio per total snaps a game. So I went 65 snaps a game, which will be up from a year ago, if you can believe that, because that's not even a ton. And I went,
no, it's not.
And I went 37 run, 28 pass.
That'd be perfect.
But you know what? I kind of get the sense 28 might be low.
I think it might be a little
I think
low.
they might.
It might be closer to 33, 32.
I was thinking 32.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on just what the reads are for the RPO stuff that day. You know, if they decide to crash real hard,
that's fair.
Then it'll be more passes.
Good stuff. TK,
I kind of like
we appreciate the call as always. Enjoy your what's up?
Hey,
go ahead,
I will
TK.
get to you guys on the Connor Booth stuff.
All right,
People are disrespecting him.
Yeah, good play, and I agreed with you. Good player.
Hey,
tough family too.
Yeah, that's a good. Listen, I watched some of those highlights. I like Connor Booth.
Yeah, his dad's a stud.
TK, have a good workout today. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, TK.
Appreciate it. Bye, guys.
25 and 10. That's 2.5 to 1.
Yeah, I know. 2.5 to 1 would be a great year. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Swing and a miss. And for the first time, Rocky Top reaches the mountaintop.
We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. So I wanted to clarify something from yesterday when I was
Like butter? Ghee? Lafleur?
Guy Lafleur.
Yeah, see? Oui.
Do you know a little bit of French?
Oui.
Un poco. Oh, that's Spanish.
I just said see, so it's all the same.
Oui.
Je me l'appelle.
I know.
DB.
I basically only know the food words like croissant.
French fries.
Or excuse me, you have to say croissant.
Frites.
I know. I can do frites. I can do some of the wines. That's about it. Champagne.
Oh, okay.
Crepes.
Crepes. Yeah, that's a good one. There you go.
Crepes.
There you go, crepes.
I saw a crepes knockoff yesterday on TikTok.
Yeah.
I just have a thing against warm fruit, so I kept on scrolling.
Yeah, I don't do the fruit toppings on like pancakes or anything. I'm not about that life.
No.
Just give me that butter and syrup.
Yeah.
Roll. That's a roll.
I'm gonna pass.
So I wanted to clarify because so the number that I was giving out yesterday with the true freshman quarterbacks. So that wasn't all of the true freshman quarterbacks. That was the top 3 rated freshman quarterbacks from each class for the last 10 years. Yeah. So I was doing that because that's the most comparable to what Rayola is coming in. But there were people did bring up good examples, and I think we talked about off air like Keaton Slovis as a true freshman, had an incredible year at SC, right? Like 72% completion, over 3,000
And I said
yards.
off air, like just following those guys, he threw it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like they threw and they literally would throw the ball 4 yards.
Yeah. But he ended up with great numbers, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
But TK brought up something you and I talked about.
Yeah.
So with the RPO element, which everybody does, that's why I think like 58, 59% just isn't very good.
Completion percentage?
They just make a lot of easy throws now.
They do.
But to the contrary, though, I'll also make the case that Nebraska will take shot plays because, as we heard one,
they're going to murder you.
Matthew Aloysius rules say if you want to play 8 in the box and play 3 deep, they'll murder you.
We will
absolutely murder you.
Yeah, and the thing that helps that too is I know I used to be on the defensive side of the ball when we were like a 4-4 cover 3 team.
Mm-hmm.
And, we would totally gap you out. And, if we got 4 verts, we'd lock a guy. There's just lots of things that you can do. And I'm just thinking, why would anybody play this defense?
Yeah.
Like over time, I'm thinking, why would anybody play this defense?
That's a beautiful question.
Because it basically just turns into, man to man. Somebody's got to hold a hash and somebody's got to carry a vertical. Just give yourself some help. Now, underneath, you're probably pretty good, but they're all one-on-ones with 4 verts.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the great equalizer why people got away from.
Oh, for sure.
Like 4-4 cover 3s.
Yeah.
But we did see, there were so many times Sharpie and I we'd talk pre-snap or something like that. And I'm like, are we counting the number of bodies around the box?
Mm-hmm.
Like you clearly would have 8 in the box.
Yeah.
Right. They would be playing with two eyes along the D line, which is the inside shoulder of the guard, and 2 inside linebackers. It almost looked like 4-4s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you just shouldn't. Safety would be down into the go back to Minnesota. I mean, they'd be down into the box, and you'd think you'd have something backside. And of course, now Newman was a really, really good safety, but all of a sudden he'd get back and play a crosser, and you're like, they're just not good enough to make them pay for that look.
Mm-hmm.
But good offenses, or with more than 1 or 2 proven receivers, they'll definitely make you pay.
Yeah,
definitely make.
Well, I think
pay.
that's what.
Even Iowa, as good as they are in the secondary, they know what they're willing to give up.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, like they know percentages pre-snap.
You're always willing to get. You have to be willing to give up something.
Yeah, that's what we know.
And you try and make that something as difficult as it can be to get.
Sounds good, right?
Right.
Problem is
well, there's a couple problems, right? Is a lot of people don't want to give up anything. They just are unwilling mentally to go to that place. And if you do that, you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
Like you have to know this is where I'm vulnerable. This is what I'm giving up. And this is why I'm giving it up.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's because it's the strength of your defense that you're like, hey, this is the place where I feel the best about, or whether it's the weakness of the offense where you're like, hey, I don't know that they can consistently make that play. Right. A lot of times
that's kind of along the lines of what we think, right? If you're going to make a play 1v1 down the hash and it's the second or first week in November, or October, and you think you're going to make a living throwing that ball,
good on you.
Hey, knock yourself out.
Yeah, that's what we say about
you're going to have to throw it over our heads.
What's what we say about Coach McDermott all the time, right? It's like, hey, if you want to beat him on contested mid-rangers, like you're going to win.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to make 50% of those, you'll win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations. He's betting that you can't. Yeah. That's it, right? It's a pretty simple equation if you're willing to admit it, right? And then you can kind of filter everything else through that.
So, we were, and this was more of an off-air exercise, but we're talking about number of snaps Nebraska can get. I think off-air I said 65.
Yeah. And then you said to TK too this morning, but
now, it seems low.
Yeah, it's not a huge number.
Well, as bad as they were last year, they got 61.
Yep.
Right. What'd you say? 1738?
61.
Or am I thinking?
No, 739 total plays.
739
divided by 12 is 61.5. And
there was a liquor joke in there. I'm like, hey, what's up? Hello. 1738. Anyway. So you're at a smidge over 61 and some change, right?
61 and a half. Yep.
So you get one more first down a game, one less turnover a game. You could look at it a multitude of ways.
Pretty easy to get to 3 or 4 more plays.
But I'm just telling you, it's not that easy.
Pretty simple to get to 3 or 4 more plays.
The numbers sound like, only 4 more snaps a game.
Yeah.
Again, doesn't seem lofty, but I don't.
What about on the other side? What if you get off the field on third down 1 extra time a game?
Well, that's that too.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You get off the field 1 extra time a game. If you get to the number, what coach rules say? High 20s, low 30%? I think on third down stop.
Yeah, he said like the high 20s, low 30s, I think is what he said.
You do that,
yeah,
you're giving the ball back to your offense 3 more times a game.
In which case you absolutely will get to 65. Yeah.
So there are multiple ways to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say Nebraska's a 35-30 team.
35 rush, 30 pass.
Yeah. At 4.2 a carry. Should they get 4.2 a carry as a team?
They got 4.4 last year with no pass.
I thought the offensive line wasn't very good.
Well, I don't know who told you.
Weren't our backs average?
I do think the backs were average. I thought the offensive line was pretty good.
Yeah, you take umbrage with that because I'm kind of talking to you too.
Well, I'm never.
Were you surprised to see 4.4?
No, I knew they ran the ball well last year. A lot of that's quarterback centric run though too.
We whined like.
Well, a lot of that's quarterback centric run.
Kids.
I thought the backs were average. I thought the running game overall was pretty good.
Did you see the backs YPCs?
I'll have to go look.
Yeah. Because I think, remember, if you're going to take the good from quarterback runs, then you have to take the sacks too, my man.
I understand that.
Okay. So I'm just.
We had a lot of quarterbacks running open for long chunk plays last year.
We had a lot of quarterbacks last year taking sacks. Really?
I'm gonna look up how many sacks they took last year.
Did I tell you Nebraska was top 3 in the Big Ten last year in amount of time to protect a quarterback? Top 3.
Yeah.
In the conference. In the Big Ten, Ravi. They had time to get rid of the football.
Nebraska only lost 213 yards on sack plays last year. Yeah.
What'd they rush for? 1,600?
They rushed for 2,400 total.
Net?
No, that's gross. And then you take away the 200 and then some losses from the running backs. So 2,100 net.
They need to be 25.
Yeah, probably.
That's a lot of yards, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to look up for like a frame of reference. I'd have to look up other.
Or you could just do 210 divided by 12.
It's going to be less than 20 yards a game. It's like.
Dude, that's a lot.
I mean,
and quarterback losses? What are you talking about?
20 yards a game?
Oh, my Lord.
Less than that? Like
that's a lot.
17?
I
was looking at running back yard. I was looking for running back yards per carry.
Yeah, focus.
I'm working on it, man.
Ravi's son.
Throwing too much stuff.
Shane, you just got to talk him into submission. My buddy, Jay Noddle, he told me one time, he's like, yeah, that's cool, right? People tell you 90% of what you need to know. If you just listen. He and my dad, both big proponents of that. He said one thing to look out for in these discussions, because he would always win in all these big negotiations and stuff. He said, just take mental note. The first person to ask a question 3 times in a row controls the conversation.
You got to ask one more time then what the yards per carry were?
I'm just saying, like, I've never in 30 years I haven't forgot about that.
The going. Yards per carry for Emma Johnson was 4.6. Gabe Irvin was 5.2. Anthony Grant was 4.0.
Shane,
we're 5-7. We got to practice.
Harburg was 4.0.
Listen,
Sims was 4.5.
For as bad as you think the running backs were, timeout. Just let me say this.
Average.
Just let me say this. 2 of those guys were over the team average. The guy that you give a lot of credit for, both of them, Sims and Harburg, were under the team average.
Sims was just above.
Well, is it 4.4 or 4.6? I mean, I could be missing.
4.4.
Okay, so and he ran for 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay, he didn't play enough for that to count. But I say all that to say, I still think big time. I'll agree with you in one thing. I think good backs should be 5 yards a carry or greater. So don't let the 4.5 thing fool you. But 4.5 per carry is good enough to win.
Oh, it's definitely good enough to win. But I still thought they were average. Like for what the offensive line did last year, I felt like that number should have been higher.
Robbie here for O-line.
We will be back.
First one, and a save by Brusky, and then it's pushed away out of harm's way by Kulikov, and the Panthers break it out quickly. Here's Reinhardt at the right wing side. Reinhardt to the right circle. A shot, and he scores! Sam Reinhardt gives the Panthers a 2-1 lead. Reinhardt gives the Panthers a 2-1 lead.
We will be back.
Lead! Lead! The power play's over. Shot tip, they score. The power play's over. Shot tip, they score. Rodriguez got it on net.
We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Verhaeghe, far side of the ice, down to the corner. Verhaeghe works the inboards in, has it the trapezoid. Rodriguez near side. The power play's over. Shot tip, they score. Rodriguez got it on net. It was tipped out in front, and the Panthers have the first one. And a save by Brusky, and then it's pushed away out of harm's way by Kulikov, and the Panthers break it out quickly. Here's Reinhardt at the right wing side. Reinhardt to the right circle. A shot, and he scores! Sam Reinhardt gives the Panthers a 2-1 lead.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we are joined now by Eddie Garcia. He is then update anchor for Fox Sports Radio, as well as the host of the Locked On LA Kings podcast and the Puck podcast. Eddie, how are you this morning?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Oh, well, I almost went from, well, I was going to never be the GOAT, but I almost was like going to be the butt of all the jokes, having, as you remember, picking the Panthers to win this thing. I didn't sleep a wink Sunday night going into Monday morning. If I would have been the guy that, because remember, after game 3, Eddie, I was like, oh, man, this is great. You guys should have hopped on board too. I can't believe I jinxed this thing. That was the gamut of emotion. So if it's just me and I don't have anything at stake, I think the Florida Panthers were feeling on Sunday, Eddie.
Well, I think they had to be feeling pressure for sure. I think if they tried to tell you they weren't, they're lying. But at the same time, the reality was all the previous 6 games didn't matter. Whether they had won or lost, it came down to how they played in that game on that night. They were on home ice. They obviously knew that they could beat Edmonton. They'd done it 3 times already. So, I mean, was there pressure? Of course. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think it was – I mean, look, you have to go into that type of a situation and just take it shift by shift, compartmentalize it. The game is going to be, played in a series of different moments and just win those moments. And I thought Florida came out and established early on the tone that was so successful for them in the first 3 games. They were forechecking, they were hitting, they were being physical, and then that carried them through. It's certainly a testament to those guys to have that mental toughness to not go into a game like that and be worried about the embarrassment of being only the second team ever to blow a 3-0 lead in the final, and focus on, what the moment that's in front of them, and, take care of business with that. And nobody cares when it's all said and done. If you lost those 3 games in a row, all they care about is that you won the first Stanley Cup in franchise history, and that's what they did.
Crazy how the narrative can change, because remember the reports on Sunday were when Bobrovsky got the day off, it was, oh, geez, psychological warfare, like what's going on. And Maurice had said, we'd given him Sundays off before. And then, some smart fans were like, yeah, but that was in series with short turnarounds. Like, what's going on? And sure enough, he went right back to being one of the best, if not the best player on the ice last night. How good do you think that feels for Maurice and Bobrovsky to have publicly, said that out loud and then have it come to fruition to the positive?
I mean, I when Paul Maurice left Winnipeg, I'll be honest, I didn't think it was the greatest exit for a guy like him, who's a Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah.
I kind of felt, honestly, like quit on the Winnipeg Jets. Now, it obviously worked out for him. He's got the last laugh, and he felt like it wasn't going to happen there. And so he went to find greener pastures, and it worked out for him. But I didn't care for the way he left, during the season the way he did. But that said, the confidence he projected in his team throughout, when they were going through this stretch of where they lost 3 in a row, he kept his calmness about him. Now, what he was really feeling inside, only he can explain that. But the outward appearance was a guy that was like, we're okay. We're going to, in the end, I still will bet in 7 games my team's going to win 4. He projected a lot of confidence and calmness, and it didn't hurt things. So I don't know. I can't say that was definitely, the edge that it gave them. But, when your head coach projects that kind of calm demeanor and shows confidence in you, I mean, it has to help at least a little bit. But for Bobrovsky, I think there was probably a little bit of a mental reset for him, change things up. I mean, he looked great in the first 3, didn't look good in the next 3. So why not take a day off or do something different, mix it up, whatever you need to do to reset and get ready for that winner take all game 7, do what you got to do. And he certainly looked like the Bob that we saw in the first 3 and not in game 4, 5, and 6.
Eddie, let me try and remove the results of Game 7 from your mind for a second here. Going into that game, with the context of everything, like, who would you have rather been? Would you have rather been Florida, having lost 3 straight, but playing at home Game 7 for the Stanley Cup? Would you have rather had the momentum of being Edmonton with all the confidence? You're not worrying about choking. You're in this place where you've got all the momentum and you feel like you've got Bobrovsky kind of on the ropes a little bit. Like, before the game, who would you have rather been?
I would have rather been Edmonton. And I picked Florida in 7 to start the series, and we were having a big debate on our show, and I tried to put on the calm face and stick to my guns and, say, oh, no, Florida's still going to win. They're still going to win. They're the better team, blah, blah, blah. I would have rather been Edmonton. I mean, Florida had all the pressure on them on home ice to, again, go down as only the second team ever and the first team since 1942 to blow a 3-0 lead, and you lose the Stanley Cup final for a second year in a row. For Edmonton, they kind of went in that. I mean, look, they're very disappointed, and you get that close, and you come up short. It guts you. I mean, it's devastating.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's not, for them to battle back and make it a 7-game, look, it's professional sports. I'm not much into moral victories when it comes to that kind of thing. But I don't have an issue with Oilers fans saying, you know what, I'm pretty proud of my team. I don't have an issue with that. I think I'm okay with that. So for me, going into it, I would have rather been the Oilers. And frankly, if they would have scored the first goal, I think it could have been a different game. I think it was so important for Florida to get that first goal, to get the crowd into it. And I don't know if they're behind with their style of play, if they have the firepower to come back the way the Oilers, I thought they did. But, hey, all credit to the Panthers for the way they played defense, for the way they killed penalties, for the way Bobrovsky played. But to answer your question, I'd rather been Edmonton going into Game 7.
Eddie, I know you remember this when Huizenga first bought the team before he sold. I think they were originally going to be like the Blockbusters or whatever because that was the franchise that he'd had so much success with, and they went through this deal where they went back and forth about season tickets and giving away freebies, and then they wanted to maybe move back to Quebec, and then Caldwell takes over in 2016 to kind of run the franchise. Is there something to be said for their patience in terms of wanting to get this right that makes it a little more sweeter for the franchise? Because they've had some lows, some real lows.
Oh, there's no doubt. And, I've talked to people who have covered the Panthers since their inception, and the last 2 years have been like a dream for them because, they had one Cinderella run, and then they got swept out of the Stanley Cup final, and then it was just a lot of years of just bad teams, bad management, just bad. And people weren't showing up, and they weren't giving them a reason to. So it's and remember they had Joel Quenneville there. They thought, hey, this is the Stanley Cup winning coach.
Yeah.
He's going to be the answer. And then there's that scandal, and they end up
to get rid of him. Yeah.
They have a guy named Andrew Burnett who won Coach of the Year, and they were like, nope, we're going to get rid of him too because we want to win the Stanley Cup. We think he's good, but we don't think he's the guy to get us over the hump. And we're like, oh my God, what are they doing? But they push all the right buttons, and Paul Maurice ended up being the right guy. And there's a lot of people that were like, man, paying $10 million to a goalie in today's NHL, I don't know about that. Well, in the end, Sergei Bobrovsky wins the Stanley Cup. So when it's all said and done, they made the right moves. And they went out and they were aggressive. They went out and got Matthew Tkachuk, and they went out and added pieces like Vladimir Tarasenko and guys like that. So, they did it the right way. And in the end, they're obviously standing at the top of the mountain.
Let me ask you something, Eddie. In a sport that's so difficult to win the championship, perhaps the most difficult of the major sports, how is it that we see mid-season coaching changes seem to? I mean, we saw St. Louis win one. Edmonton almost got another with the insertion of Knobloch. What is it about hockey and maybe making changes at the top mid-season that don't seem to normally derail teams in this sport? It's kind of strange.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, only one team wins the cup. So there were, I think, 10 other teams this year that made coaching changes that didn't win the cup. So It's not like it's a guarantee that you do it, you're going to win the cup. But I mean, my LA Kings did it in 2012 when they fired their head coach. They brought in Daryl Sutter. So it's not unusual at all to get at least a bump from it. So it does happen a lot, but it's crazy. I mean, if you look at the Jack Adams Trophy finalists from year to year, it's amazing how many of those guys get fired the next year. I mean, they don't waste any time. And even I thought, when Edmonton pulled the trigger so early,
they were panicking.
Well, no, it was like, man, they are not messing around, because they were talking cup or bust was kind of the motto. I was like, damn, they ain't kidding. They're not waiting to see if they can pull themselves out of it. They're going to do something about it. It ended up working out for them. I don't know if Chris Knobloch is eventually going to be, the answer long term there. I mean, he certainly, I'll give him all the credit in the world for helping to turn things around, this season, but who knows? But yeah, no, you're right. The NHL is not shy about making changes. I don't know if it's something to be proud of.
It's just strange.
Really, but they do it a lot. There's no doubt about that. There's not a lot of security being an NHL head coach.
All right, let me get you out of here on this. We were talking in the first segment that I was surprised, because it's rare in games like this that are so tightly contested that when you have the best player on the ice, I guess it's not between the pipes, which was Bobrovsky for Florida, but with McDavid playing at such a high level, what was your level of surprise that in a low-scoring game like that the best player on the ice wasn't the difference?
I wasn't shocked. It's not the NBA where you can get Michael Jordan the ball at the end of the game and he can, take a game-winning shot. Clearly, Florida focused on Connor McDavid and they collapsed around him, and they did a great job defensively. He did have that one chance where there was that loose puck in front of the net.
Yeah.
Bobrovsky was scrambling, and somebody just got their stick on his stick and kept him from getting to a loose puck, or maybe it's a different story. But, I mean, look, he had an amazing game 4 and 5. But, look, I didn't have a problem with him winning the Conn Smythe, by the way, as playoff MVP, because it's for the playoffs, even though he didn't, have a point in the last 2 games. But and there wasn't really anybody for Florida who I thought really kind of stood tall. But I don't know. It's just, that's what I love about hockey, and maybe what some people don't like about it is that it is a team sport, that it takes, full 4 lines and 6 defensemen and a goalie. Everybody's got to contribute. And it's usually not just one guy. Even guys like Gretzky and Lemieux, as great as they were, they had to have help from other people as well. So
when that puck dropped last night, Eddie, both teams had their third line out there to start the Stanley Cup final championship. I mean, that's just how it goes in hockey. Like, it's how you play the game.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he might have had a couple extra chances, and maybe on the power play he would have been a little bit more dangerous, but I got to give a lot of credit to Florida. I thought they did a great job on him. And, and like I said, that's hockey. Hockey's a team sport. Yes, individuals can make a difference, but it didn't shock me that, I never thought, let's put it this way, I never thought he'd go in there in Game 7 and just put the team on his back and win it like that. It doesn't really happen that way in hockey very often.
That's Eddie Garcia from Fox Sports Radio. Also, the LA Kings podcast on Locked On and the Puck podcast. Eddie, we appreciate your time, and enjoy the offseason, I guess.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Eddie. I don't know how much people like him enjoy the offseason, like, I know.
McDavid had 31 points in the first 3 rounds.
That's a lot. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I don't know a lot about hockey, but that seems like a lot.
31 points.
Yeah, it is. I don't know.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. That's what seems like a lot. I wonder how much, we talked a lot last week about
but he still had down games, though.
Yeah, I can't. Was it Rodriguez that got the late little poke check from behind on that loose puck? I can see the number. Or it might have been 19. It might have been Kachuk. I know he's talking about the puck scrambled and went to the right of Bobrovsky. And McDavid was going to maybe
it looked like he was going to have a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it got knocked away late.
Yeah, it seemed like they were, for as much chaos as was happening in front of Bobrovsky in the third period. I think there was a couple scrambles with about 7 minutes left, and then there was that sequence with about 3 minutes left that I mentioned earlier, and it seemed like one of those was going to bust through.
I just can't
from the odds of it.
Part of the reason I took a little offense last night and there was some embarrassing moments, right? I mean, somebody they were showing like this old ticket,
mm-hmm.
and it was for $7.
Yeah,
to get to a Panthers game,
mm-hmm.
$7. And Viola, when the new ownership group took over, and then he hired Caldwell in 2016, like, and sometimes you see this in like minor league sports and stuff. They were giving away so many tickets
mm-hmm.
just to get people in there.
Mm-hmm.
Viola was like, "This just doesn't work. Like, we have to roll the dice and invest."
Yeah, it's because you're devaluing your product, right?
No, I get the why. But a lot of people don't want to do it, right? I mean, they had like 1,800 fans there.
Yeah.
And Chris was down in Tampa, and he's like, "This is funny. Like, between the Rays and the Panthers, I don't know whose fan base is worse." But I used to tell him at least the Rays were good.
Yeah.
And that's back when they were the Devil Rays. I mean, so it's like, I don't know. I kind of like to see those stories because the patience paid off.
Yeah, I was wondering how much that. What's up, Shane?
Oh, I was just going to say, even though it may have swung that way for Florida, there's going to be some team someplace else that is swinging just the opposite way. Just remember that when that happens for a team, there's another team somewhere down the line that's doing just the opposite.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm not going to call my shot because it's such a proud franchise, but there's one team that comes to mind. That's the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Like, they may. I don't know how much more patient they can be. They may be just on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can't remember what I was going to say. But I wanted to get back to something.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I'm only giving you a hard time
mm-hmm.
because I'm going to defend running backs.
That's fine.
With Nebraska and total yardage, but your knight in shining armor, TG, was like, hey, it's 150 yards a game, whatever, for Nebraska, because we were talking about rushing totals
mm-hmm.
and what looks like it's successful. So we go back and we're looking, and Nebraska ran for 176.6 a game, which
mm-hmm.
is top 40. It's top 40.
Yep.
Nebraska's rushing offense was top 40 in college football. You would think that would yield better results, right?
Ideal, like in most cases, yes.
Okay.
In most of the time, yes. Obviously, we know why it didn't last year.
Let me give you a little boost, if you will.
Okay.
I'll be your B12 for a second.
Okay.
Maybe to validate you. Why do you think? What's the number one reason you think that 176.6 didn't yield better results in close games?
I think there's two reasons.
If you get one, I'm going to be pissed.
I think one of the reasons was down the stretch, teams were loading up against them and knew that they couldn't beat them with the pass. So they loaded up against the run, and when it mattered, they weren't getting the 4.4. Right, that's one of them for me. The other one is obviously just the mistakes. You've got a million turnovers, whatever. Like, if you're making that many mistakes, it's going to offset some of the good things. So those would be the two reasons.
All right, how many touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, did Nebraska score? Don't look. Just answer the question.
I know they were at like 27 total, I think, as a team.
Yeah. How many rushing touchdowns did Nebraska score?
I would guess.
What's that?
I'm trying to think how many passing I think they scored, so I can do the math. I would guess 14.
16, which puts them in the bottom 35. So you're in the top 40
in yards
per. And you're in the bottom 30 in terms of touchdowns scored. That's the difference.
Yeah.
They're not, for instance, I mean, Georgia rushed for 191 yards a game. So that's 15 yards.
Mhm.
Just imagine if Nebraska snaps the ball 6 more times a game.
Yeah.
So when you get into the numbers, we make it seem like these things are just oh, they're this, and oh, they'll never be that.
Mhm.
Like when you get into the minutia of, we talk about going from 61.5 snaps to 68. That's 2 more stops on third down potentially. It's 1 more first down, 1.5 more first downs. Those aren't big numbers,
One fewer
right?
turnover.
Georgia runs the ball for a 191 a game. That's only 15 more yards. You know how many rushing touchdowns Georgia had?
30.
40. 40.
Yeah, that'll do it.
It's incredible.
It's 2.5 times more. 15
40.
more yards, 2.5 times more touchdowns.
Just being efficient. Do you know who had more rushing yards per game?
Okay.
Shane. Let me ask Shane first, because we get this thing twisted as a fan base.
Okay.
Who had more rushing yards per game, Michigan or Nebraska?
Yeah, I can't even answer that. Like,
I think most people would say Michigan.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you say Michigan?
Who had more rushing yards per attempt, Michigan or Nebraska?
I think most people say Michigan.
Yeah, guess what?
It's
They
Nebraska.
both ran for 4.5 per carry.
Mhm.
Michigan had 169.1 a game. That is 7 yards less than Nebraska.
Mhm.
How many rushing touchdowns did Michigan score?
I'm gonna guess. So Georgia did 4. I'm gonna like 38.
40.
Yeah.
See, we talk about Nebraska. So, and maybe you're looking at it the other way, like, oh my God, they can't get out of their own. No, man, they're not that far off. Now, I get it. 40-16 is awful.
Mhm.
But we get so enamored with statistical output. The key to running the football is to be able to run the ball when you want to,
Mhm.
right? That's what some people say. No.
You gotta be able to run when you need to.
When you have to.
Yeah.
Right?
There's-
Because they were so bad on third and shorts.
Mhm.
It was incredible. And I get it. We would get upset and like, oh, they're in gun, and then they're motioning to empty, and we know what's
So
going to
I
happen.
think part of the reason they were so bad in those situations was because there was nothing to keep the defense honest.
yeah.
So that's why
the-
Coach Rule says what he says about those boxes and fundamentally the difference
The different looks you're gonna get now.
this year.
Yeah.
But you can't have 24 less touchdowns when you're running the ball for 2 yards more per game than some of these other teams. Michigan ran the ball for less yards, but just a lot more efficient. Same YPCs. It's staggering.
We'll get to this more on Hurrdat Sports Radio when we come back. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Ball strike three. Instead of that slider, it's a fastball down the middle. And for a Hurrdat is not happy. That guy is. He's retired 5 in a row, and he struck out the side.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. And it's good we got a couple open segments because I think he's about to yell at me.
I'm not. I'm not.
You get talked off the ledge?
No, I just don't know if I agree. But I do like some of the rationale. I'm going to have to ask a couple of other head college football coaches.
I think the one guy you asked has a pretty good opinion.
How do you know I asked him?
Because you told me.
Oh.
Literally right before we came on the air, you told me what he said.
Well, no, this was different. Like, I just asked specific to this question.
Yeah.
I suppose we better say what we're talking about.
You asked me whether it was easier to control.
First of all, you're frustrating me. So you have to set the whole context. Okay. So what set me off was the fact that you're so down on running backs. Stop it. Just let me finish because you're going to rationalize it.
I just said they were average. That's all I said.
Okay. And I'm just telling you that average is plenty good enough.
I didn't say it wasn't good enough, but I said they were average.
So I'm talking yards per game. I'm talking statistics. All this piggybacks. I'm just building my case sequentially, right? because we're looking at this like we just need Raiola to do this, right? We see it in our what's the deal we're on every day?
The stream?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It's well, if Dylan is this, then it allows us to do this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest, I'm like, okay, is it harder to be get great quarterback play, and I always use them as an example,
mm-hmm.
or is it harder to be Iowa? And you're animate. You're like,
I think it's incredibly hard to be Iowa. I think it's incredibly hard to win the way they do at the level and consistency the way they do it.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You can't just fast forward to the end and look at their results because they clearly are defying odds.
Well, when you say it's hard to be Iowa, that's what I hear.
So listen. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm saying. Why can't you just play really elite defense and have really good special teams? Is that and my that's my question versus waiting on Superman to get the great skill receivers and the really good offensive guys at quarterback, this, that, and the other. Okay. Now, that's not saying what Iowa does is easy when you look at the final results, because they clearly are better. But I've seen Minnesota do flashes of it. I've seen Wisconsin do it to some degree. Really good special teams, run the football, play good defense. Right? So it's not like now the level that Iowa does it. Like I said, you've already penciled them in for 10 wins.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So my question was, okay, let me just kind of get inside why we can't be better at this. Keep saying, oh, take better care of the ball and turnovers and this, that, and the other. I'm like, how do you run for 177 a game but only have 16 rushing touchdowns? So in my head, I'm thinking, all right, I'm trying to get back to controlling the controllables. So if I set out to be really good defensively and go get elite level specialists, like it's my emphasis, is that easier to do than finding an elite level quarterback? The problem is we don't put the emphasis. So you see so I'm not saying fast forward to the end results of what Iowa does, because it had to start with a mindset. It had to start with, this is how we want to win football games. And I think part of it is people don't want to concede or say out loud, hey, because it's not really like this. It's just what happens. We're willing to concede some offensive talent to win the way that we need to. Oh, you can't get elite level recruiting. You can't run this offense and get, elite level. So I don't think coaches are willing to say this out loud. And for Iowa, they don't even have to, because they're clearly not getting elite level offensive talent, right? And one of their elite level guys just got in trouble for operating while whatever, right? I mean, it's college. So, like, if I want to go build a building, I'm simply asking the question, which building is easier to build?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on I think it just depends a lot on the coach. Like, obviously, it's easier for Kirk Ferentz to coach this way than it is for him to coach an offensively based team. But it was a lot easier for Mike Leach to coach an offensively based team than it was a defensively based team.
Now, I'm thinking, okay, so in my head, I'm trying to go to these number of plays and what would benefit Nebraska. So then that got us all the way to, man, we keep waiting on this elite level offense. And I'm like, why don't we just get good on defense first, or stay good on defense?
I was like, yeah, they were pretty good last year, and I think they can be.
Can't this team? Isn't it? So fundamentally, it seems easier to build on what the defense did last year, and that's different than it's easier to improve more on offense, because the offense had so far to come.
Yeah, if they get to average, they've improved
you're significantly
more.
better.
Yeah.
So, but you get the fact that that's not the same thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I asked a question. I'm like, hey, man, is it easier to build on offense or defense? I wanted to put it to a poll question, but this is my response. So you can be a tempo team. They have unlimited roster size. In the NFL with 53 players, they die playing that many plays. The RPO rules in college football are ludicrous. You can be 3 yards downfield, and guys can get into you, and it doesn't get called. You can run the quarterback, can't run. Then we're getting into defensive schemes, which I can appreciate, but it doesn't make for good radio. He said the lack of huddling and the tempo for the college clock just limits a lot of defensive changes. He said defensive linemen in the NFL for the most part are unblockable. That's why teams do what they do tempo-wise, and you're seeing it in college too. They just run entirely too many plays. The clock rules have only changed slightly, but you'll be amazed at how much it helps the offense. Like, that's his response.
Mm-hmm.
So do I have to is it easier to build my team that way?
So I think it can be. I think it's easier because, I don't know, we've seen a lot of the Iowa thing's hard for me because I obviously have an immense amount of respect for what they've done as a program, because I just think I look at their schedule and go, hey, that's 10 wins, easy peasy. And I have no idea. And I think Cade McNamara is super average. But
I would love to get to the point where I could get out of bed and I could tell you we're going to win 9 games.
100%.
And I think they can do that.
But I have a hard time because we're using Iowa as the example, and that's fine. I have a hard time separating philosophically from what I've seen.
Is it a bad example because they're so elite?
Yeah, I do. I think they're so far an outlier in those two categories.
What about Minnesota a handful of years ago? You realize PJ Fleck won 10 games twice?
I get that, yeah. I do. One of those years, they haven't been great on offense either year. I get that. But they also haven't had the consistency either, because I do think it's hard to be elite at both defense and special teams. I really do. And I think it's harder to.
I don't know why you. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to.
I'm only doing that. I'm only saying that because it doesn't seem like very many teams are. So I'm just playing the numbers.
I think coaches concede because it's not sexy when you recruit personnel.
Maybe
Right?
they'd
not
rather
like, hey, it's hard to sell on the road. Hey, we want to be elite on special
I also
teams.
think it's really hard to recruit elite specialists at the kicker and punter spots because
he won 9 games twice, 11 games once.
I think it's
PJ Fleck.
I think it's really hard because those two spots, no matter, you can get the best recruit in the country, and if something happens with them mentally, all of a sudden they're useless to you.
All right, but listen to me though. 5-7, 7-6, 11-2, 3-4 the COVID year, which fudge, they beat Nebraska
with like 20 guys.
9-4, 9-4, 6-7. He's 50-34 at Minnesota.
Yeah, he's done a good job.
Do you look at him as an elite level coach?
Not really.
Well, it apparently wasn't that hard to do.
I think he's pretty good.
Maybe you don't have to jump to Iowa.
We can jump to Minnesota. That's fine. But Minnesota also hasn't had the consistency. There's a couple of 6s and 7s in there.
Okay, what about that isn't consistent?
I mean,
bro, listen to this.
Range from 6 to 11 is a good range.
Listen
That's a pretty
to these
decent
numbers
range.
again. 5-7 is first year.
Mm-hmm.
They got better 7-6.
Sure.
Then 11-2, 3-4 during COVID.
Yep.
Outlier. 9-4, 9-4 back-to-back years. That's pretty consistent.
And then back to 7-6.
6-7.
They were 6 and 7. Yeah.
Like, would you rather consistently only win 4 games?
No. Nebraska's been consistent in the bad way.
I don't know, man.
I think part of the problem
we got to parse through this.
I think part of the problem is we're viewing this through a filter of how bad Nebraska's been.
Or to the contrary, how good Iowa's been in those two things.
Yeah.
Maybe it's somewhere in the middle.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Burton is ready. So is Combs. The 1-2 pitch. Breaking ball swung on and missed. He is out. And for the first time in school history, the baseball national title has a home sweet home on Rocky Top. The Tennessee Volunteers, baseball national champions for the first time ever. The
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage.
This is fascinating.
So what would you like to talk about now, DB?
This is just fascinating. Okay, give me okay. Welcome. Did we say welcome back?
I did say welcome back.
I'm like, there's a lot of information on you talk about Rain Man. Like, I'm having to compile these. Hi, Shane. How you doing over there? Can we go back to, and I'm asking you on the fly.
I'm living large.
It's okay. That's a lie. It's okay if you have to take your time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you said, okay, so I'm giving you Minnesota, and clearly I'm talking to 2 college head coaches at one time, and it looks like they both are leaning towards
Offense.
Mm-hmm. For a number of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
All very good. The data that one of the guys is pumping me real time is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
He's either sitting on this or he's doing this real time, because this is fascinating. So I'm blown away. Did you get a good enough handle on Utah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has been since 2012.
Okay.
I went all the way back. I'm just doing points per game.
Okay.
That's as far back as I could get during the break.
Yeah, but
they have scored over 28 points per game.
You can't do that, though.
Okay, well, what would you like me to look at for points?
So,
Utah's
no. The
offense,
reason that I say you can't do that is the same reason you can't say Iowa scores 15.1 points a game, because there's defensive touchdowns in there, and there's special teams touchdowns.
Sure. I don't think Utah had.
Give me statistical. Give me yardage.
Okay, I'll see if I can find. I'll do yardage for Utah.
That's what I'm saying. You might not have had enough time, but could Nebraska be Utah?
I think Utah's better offensively than you are giving them credit for. But I'm checking. We're checking because I mean, points wise, they're much better than you're giving them credit for. But that's fine. Let's see.
You can't do that though. I'm just it's not that I'm not giving them credit. I just know that there's more than just the bottom number of line of points scored per game, because defensive points and defensive setups and turnovers are part of that. Like it's not rocket science. It's just how much credence do I want to give the bottom.
Last year, Utah was terrible offensively because Rising was out. They played terrible offense, right? I'm conceding last year.
Okay.
They were terrible offensively. 2022, they had 467 yards of total offense a game. 2021, they had 430 yards of total offense a game.
Okay.
You want me to skip 2020 or do 2020?
No. That's COVID, right?
Yeah, so we'll skip 2020. Go to 2019. Utah is at 429 yards per game. 2018, Utah is at 396.
Listen. Oh, you understand what I'm saying?
If Nebraska could have 400 yards total offense a game, I'd be thrilled.
So 176 on the ground last year with a bad offense. That means Nebraska would need to be at 214 passing per game.
Yeah.
You think that's
super doable?
Or would you be? Are you like woohoo?
I think that's good enough for Nebraska to win 8 or 9 games this year.
Because of what?
Because I think the defense is good.
Because of how
bad the offense was last year.
But see, when I was thinking like that, you were like, well, I think it's just because of how bad Nebraska has been.
I do think that change. I think that puts a filter on what we think about offense because
I'm with you.
We've been so bad, we think it's harder than it is.
Okay, no, I don't. What I'm telling you is, if you arrive at 400 yards, which isn't great, which is what I said about Utah. For Nebraska, you're using that as, oh man, that would be great. On the national scope for the number of wins that Utah gets, it's not great. They do other things really, really well when you put them on par with their peers. So if I'm not going to be Minnesota, because for whatever the reason you thought that was inconsistent, I mean, the dude won 39 games or 29 games in 3 years.
Yeah, and he's also had as many 5 to 7 wins, more 5 to 7 win seasons as he has the 9 and 11.
He's only had 2. He has 5 and 7, and he was 6 and 7 every year.
And then he had a 7.
Outside of COVID, he's been above 500.
And
I'm not here to validate PJ Fleck. I'm just telling you, I'm talking about degree of difficulty.
I'm just saying half of his seasons have been 5 to 7 wins, and the other half have been really good years. That to me is inconsistent.
Degree of difficulty.
Yeah, Minnesota's a tough job.
Okay. Degree of difficulty. We haven't been to a bowl game.
I understand that.
Okay. So if you're not going to be Minnesota because you think they're inconsistent, and we can't be Iowa because they're too good at what they do, could we be Utah?
I would love to be Utah.
The Pac-12 conference was supposed to be so offensive-minded, and somehow they found a way to function by playing better defense than everybody else, controlling the trenches, and being good at special teams.
Yeah, I would say that they won by beating everybody else's brains in on the lines.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Sure. You know who I think is going to be interesting to watch because they have great skill?
Who?
And they have on paper, a good tandem of quarterback. Let's watch this year and see how Oregon does in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Right? Because they could be closer to what I'm saying.
So, and I think
Penn State could be closer to what I'm saying.
I think
good special teams.
Yep.
Play good defense.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really talk about elite level talent on offense, even though they have good players. Because I'm still not sure about Aller, right? It's like,
I'm not sold on him.
Right? Elite level backs, though.
So I think the thing that I think maybe we're unnecessarily dividing this up wrong. Because what's the thing that all these teams have in common that you're talking about? Whether it's Iowa, whose offense is terrible, whether it's Oregon, whose offense is pretty good or really good in the last couple of years, whether it's Utah, who's somewhere in the middle. whether it's Minnesota, who's been kind of on either side of that line sometimes, but closer to Iowa than they are Oregon. Is that fair? Minnesota's closer offensively to Iowa than Oregon?
Yes.
What's the one thing all of those teams have in common that you're talking about?
Well, if Penn State wasn't in there, I would say offensive line play.
Yeah, you tossed in Penn State late. My brain hadn't done that one yet.
My bad.
But no, that's fine. But the thing that all those teams have in common isn't just offensive line play. It's both sides of the line, the trenches.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, like,
no, that's more in my okay.
Like,
I'll humor me.
We don't have to we don't necessarily have to divide this up. Like, well, defense can be really good and the offense can be average, or special teams can be.
Can we have the conversation without talking about who the quarterback is?
If you give me what?
I'm just waiting.
If you
don't let my body language deter you.
Okay. If you give me, hey, you're going to be really good in the trenches, which is, I get, not easy to do. It's maybe harder to be consistently good in the trenches than it is to find pretty good quarterback play. Like, I think that's really hard to do. If you can give me good trench play on both sides of the line, then I will show you a team that will win consistently. That's not like rocket science, but that's what we're talking about with all these teams. Like, that's why we look at Oregon and say, hey, they're going to be okay in the Big Ten. And we look at USC and we're like, I don't know what that's going to look like. Right? Quarterback play has been better at USC, right? And under Lincoln Riley in general, you can assume he's going to have a good quarterback. I assume Oregon's going to be fine at quarterback, but I don't know. Like Gabriel, was kind of injured. Yeah. Moore's coming off a up and down true freshman year. Like, I don't know what the quarterback's going to play at Oregon's be like, but we feel good about them because of what their lines are like. We feel terrible about a guy that we know is going to have good quarterback play because the rest of his team and his lines on both sides of the ball are terrible consistently. Right. So yes, we're parsing this up between offense and defense, but if we really want to get to like the crux of it, it's, hey, can you control the line of scrimmage? And then everything else we can figure out.
100%. But let's remember what started this like 3-week onslaught of these deep dives we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I posed the question and I asked it differently last year. I said, built the way Nebraska is currently built.
Mm-hmm.
And both these things were doing standing broad jumps.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're telling me is you feel like Nebraska has some depth up front along the offensive line?
Yeah, I like
Have
that
I
group.
proven over the last 3 weeks and most recently with the yards per carry and number of yards per game that they run the ball better than we think?
Yeah.
What do you think the strongest unit is on this football team in its totality? What position?
Probably defensive line.
Okay. So do I have the offensive and defensive line covered?
I think so.
So I asked all those questions. Say, aren't we now making the case that we could get more away from what the quarterback needs to be do if Nebraska focuses on accentuates their strengths?
If they get at least average quarterback play. They have to get average quarterback play because we saw that last year. They were pretty good on the offensive line. They were pretty good on the defensive line. They ran the ball pretty well.
That's the only reason I asked the question. Can you get average special teams play before you get average quarterback play? And
this year for Nebraska, I think it's easier to get average quarterback play because of the guys they have. I don't know. Like, I like Tristan Alvano. I don't know if he's going to start making kicks on a consistent basis. I have no idea. I like Brian Buschini. I don't know if he's going to start butting the ball where he needs to on a consistent basis. I have more confidence, and maybe it's foolish. Maybe just because I like him and he's got 5 stars.
You don't have to defend the why, because I think most people are with you.
I have more confidence at this point, and maybe it's because I've seen too much with the specialists on special teams, but I've got more confidence that Dylan Raiola could be average this year than those two guys.
Oh.
So for Nebraska this year, I think it's easier to be average at quarterback.
It's very I don't know. I think part of me is just thinking we were so mad at Satterfield last year.
It's hard to watch. That's why we were mad at him. That's not his fault, but it was hard to watch. That's why we were mad.
I'm glad we could say that out loud because I think people thought
he was terrible at his job.
Yeah, maybe I take offense to the fact that I like him.
You like him a lot.
Yeah.
And but I think Coach Rule gave a great analogy when he talked to us. Like, he was trying to do surgery on a moving train.
Yeah.
And we're like, we don't like how those stitches look. It's like, yeah, it looked terrible.
We haven't even gotten into needing to get better in game.
It was
because they got to get better in game too.
hard to watch. That's why we were mad.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Burton is ready. So is Combs. The 1-2 pitch. Breaking ball swung on and missed. He is out. And for the first time in school history, the baseball national title has a home sweet home on Rocky Top. The Tennessee Volunteers, baseball national champions for the first time ever.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. If you're in your car listening to us on any of those fine stations, make sure you click that seatbelt. Wearing your seatbelt saves lives and prevents injuries, but only if it's worn properly. Make it click. That's a message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. So I think we might have actually gotten somewhere online. Speaking of safety, as in,
Splash Brothers breakup. It's over.
I don't,
between me and you.
I think it's about.
Who was the shooter? You'd be the shooter.
Yeah,
I can't be either one of those guys.
Yeah, I'd be Clay. I'm not a big dribbler.
Yeah,
I'm a catch and shoot type guy.
You make me laugh.
I'm gonna let it go. You can ask JP. I catch and shoot.
Yeah.
I
haven't seen him.
So you're frozen. You're gonna let it go.
Zip it, Martha.
Well, I'm not letting anything go. You know that. I stay petty. I think we reached some.
Hey, but did I tell you I've got Mr. Durkin himself?
Oh, you got it. You got it rocking.
Coming by at 12:30 to get me a visual.
Okay, there we go.
We were trading pictures.
Yeah, you got to get your dogs to stop barking at the neighbors.
So they barely talk.
Yeah,
or whatever you call dogs do. It's not their thing.
Conversate.
Yeah, and they're not very loud, but I do have 2 big ones next door.
Great Pyrenees.
Man, the dude is so high end. I'm like, man, there's gonna be a lot of trade. You know what I mean?
I think we reached some common ground though on what I'm talking about versus what you're talking about with special teams off air here, because when it comes down to, for me,
I don't know why you just don't say it.
Well, I think, it takes me a while to verbalize sometimes, to figure out because like I have sort of a visceral reaction to thing, and then I have to figure it out, like process it in my mind why I feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go through like this own little personal therapy session with me. Like you'll say something, I'll feel a certain way and react to it.
That's totally Jay.
And then you kind of push me on. I'm like, okay, I have to figure out why I feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it comes down to, I think for me, is that I just don't trust specialists. This isn't an Alvaro Buscini thing specifically, because although we saw it with them last year, right? Who's the best kicker Nebraska's had in the last 15 years?
15 takes me back to,
Am I going? I think I'm going
9. 09.
Yeah. So 15, 16 years.
Henry was just leaving. Are you
I'm counting Henry.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
Alex Henry, right?
Yeah.
Incredible for Nebraska. Incredible.
He was a weapon.
What happens when he gets to the NFL?
No.
Hold on. That's just what happens when we get to the NFL.
Wasn't as good as we thought.
He struggled.
Yeah.
Right.
Emotionally.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get any less talented, did he?
No.
Right. Could still kick the 60-yarder plus whatever. Like the leg was there. Everything else was there. So that's the thing that I have a really hard time trusting with specialists. Is it seems like, and I get going from college to NFL is a big change, right? But you see it with college kickers all the time. You trust a guy, all of a sudden it's gone and you have no idea why. Usually when things go wrong with a quarterback, you know why. It seems like whether it's offensive line play isn't good, the receivers aren't good, they're getting hit too much. Like you can usually point to things and see why it's going wrong with a QB.
So
I feel like kickers and I feel like specialists are more like baseball players or golfers, where mentally it can go bad and they can get in this rut that there's really nothing you can do unless they just get themselves out of it. I have a hard time trusting that on a football field.
Okay. So it's just weird. I felt like you were saying a couple things at once. The specialists, it's this emotional thing and whatever, right? Even though I think
it's mentally and emotionally taxing in a way that,
although I think kickers need less to go right than quarterbacks.
That's fair. But the thing that they need to go right is mentally and emotionally. Has to be right.
Okay, so with quarterbacks, you're like, okay, I trust Raiola more than, let's say, Buscini and Tristan. But then in that analogy we're giving, you're like, then there's offensive line play and there's wide receivers. And
I know there's needs.
So is it about the individual or is it about the pieces around them that are functioning at a certain level? Because just even in that little talk, you gave way more variables for the quarterback than you did for the specialist.
Yeah, that's why I said but I understand those variables. The variables for the specialist, I trust less. Not just on Nebraska this year, but in general. Like I know how, maybe not me specifically, but I know how offensive lines can be fixed. I know how you can go fix receivers, right? I know how you can fix these different spots. I don't know how you get a guy who's just mentally not in a good place kicking to start making kicks again. I don't know how to do that. And nobody else does either. That's the part, is the variables that are there, while fewer with specialists, I don't know how to fix, and I trust them less.
Okay.
I think it's easier to understand the variables around a quarterback than it is around specialists.
I think it's if you're a Nebraska fan base and you haven't gotten very many wins and you're looking forward to this season, I think the ability to get inside the metrics is pretty key, because sometimes we just walk around and we throw out numbers and it's like, yeah, but what does it really mean, right? Like, what's the difference between running the ball in the red zone and scoring touchdowns versus not? Going from the 30 to the 30. What are defenses doing to you? What is it about the play calling that changes? Are we less condensed? So there are lots of little things that go into that. And sometimes, heaven forbid you're right about the running backs needing that they're average. Sometimes you just need to make a guy miss.
Yeah.
Or one-on-one, you have to be able to make a play. So it's not just a statistical output when we look at room for growth, because when you're that poor offensively, I think everything needs to be better.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. When you're that inconsistent on special teams, everything needs to be better. When you can't get off the field on third down, or you need to turn teams over more to get takeaways, I think a lot of things need to be better incrementally, but you can't typically you can't fix it all at once. So I think it's important to know where your strengths are. That's where this whole thing started from. So where do we think Nebraska has the most depth and the least questions? It's offensive line and defensive line. My premise the whole time is then build through that. Whatever that means, play to those strengths.
Could I toss another group in there? Because I think
you can.
I think there's.
But if you give me one more group, they don't belong in the other. They don't belong in the other two's discussion.
No, it can be like a sub, like tier 1.
You're going to give
two.
me wide receivers.
Yeah, that's the group. That's the third group for me on this team.
So if we still think the offensive line has room for growth because they weren't all what they needed to be last year, and we still think they're good, then the wide receiving group is way behind.
Yeah, we're also
because there was almost no productivity.
Yeah.
Versus what we're expecting.
I think that's fair. I don't have an issue with that. I also think the offensive line. The offensive line was good last year.
How would the wide receivers jump the running backs?
I like that room. I like the wide receiver room.
I get it, but so we're not talking production, we're talking hypotheticals?
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of different. There's a lot of different pieces for the wide receivers this year.
Okay.
I think.
Well, shoot, man, if we're going to do that, then I'll take Alvano over a 4-game stretch and Buschini over a 4-game stretch and just compartmentalize
That's fine.
Too. You know what I mean?
Like, if you want to take, I understand that it's there for Alvano and Buschini. I'm just telling you personally what I feel I can trust and what I don't trust, right? So, if you want to be like, hey, I saw Alvano be really good for 4 games as a true freshman. I saw Buschini be really good over a 4-game stretch, and that's who I think they are. Like, okay, yeah, great. Then Nebraska's special teams, if that's who they are for a whole year, Nebraska's going to have a lot easier time winning games with defense and special teams. If that's who they're going to be for a whole year, absolutely. If I can say, hey, give me Isaiah Nair from 2 years ago at Wyoming, and that's who I get, done. If I get Jamal Banks from his last 2 years at Wake Forest, and that's who I get, cool. And I get the Jalen Lloyd that I saw in the spring game, awesome, let's go. I'm off to – so I get what you're saying.
Do you want to know why I really think this is important? Because down the stretch, when you have Ohio State, are you going to out Ohio State?
No.
UCLA is a little bit of a wild card.
Yeah, I think UCLA is gettable this year just because of the
Do you want to try to outscore SC?
No, you want to beat their head in like Utah did.
Okay. And then you have Wisconsin and Lincoln. How do you think that game's going to go? Is it a trench game?
It should be for Nebraska.
Okay, because you're out November 20th.
Yeah.
Is that a trench game?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Iowa's going to be a trench game.
Is that a trench game?
Yeah.
So the way that I look at it is I don't want to try to out. Like we played when Gretna beat us 7-3.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to out Gretna. I want to keep that game low scoring and close.
Sure.
Even the following year when I felt like we were really good offensively, I still didn't want Flores to have the ball last.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I always think if somebody's really good at something, I don't want to, and we're not there. It doesn't matter who the team is. Like Florida couldn't win with special teams against Edmonton. Right.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to play 5-on-5.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to keep that thing low scoring because you're not going to out the Oilers. So I think that's how. Can Nebraska still get good at these things, like be better offensively, but you know what it's going to take to win that conference?
Yeah, I think
that's the thing.
I think stylistically you can play that way and still be good on offense, though. Like I'm not saying you have to.
I understand that.
Yeah, I don't think you have to play like USC,
right,
or play like Ohio State.
But I do think it's important to understand what ingredients you already have before you, right? Like if you're all starch, man, and you're not quite there with the proteins, you better make a starch heavy meal. Or if you have a lot of good proteins,
we're basically taking. I mean, like we're agreeing on the lines, right? 2 strongest units on the team, and then you're saying like, hey, I'll take Alvano and Buschini over the wide receivers.
I'm saying if we're gonna go myopic and go, if ideally they perform to, I mean, where would I draw the line? Like at some point I have to look at what we're dealing with.
I understand that. I also think that there's less that can go wrong in the things that can go wrong in a wide receiver room. I trust more than the things that can go wrong in a specialist ed. That's all it is for me. Like I just don't trust it.
Okay.
Because I've seen it go bad too many times for seemingly no good reason. I don't know what's going on in their heads, right? Yeah. Might be a very good reason. But from the outside looking in, I'm like, it doesn't make sense why you can't make kicks anymore. Yeah. It doesn't make sense.
I remember watching Rick Ankiel as a 19-year-old.
Yeah. I was like, why can't you throw strikes anymore, bud? What happened there? In the middle of a at-bat.
Was that 5 wild pitches? Yeah, it was 5 wild pitches.
Yeah. As in what, 2000?
Well, he was 2001? He was 11-5 or 11-7 as a 19-year-old phenom.
Yeah. And he, like in the middle of an at-bat, stopped being able to throw strikes and never found it.
Was that
again.
Against the Braves? I think
it was like 2000, 2001.
I think that was against the Braves. Like I'm almost positive that was against the
when
Braves.
Something goes wrong mentally.
Yeah.
Like it's obviously really hard to get it back. And you can't physically fix it, right? You can patch up a lot of other areas and figure it out.
Yeah. Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
So let's take the newbies. Let's take Oregon, Washington, UCLA, and USC.
Okay.
Do you think they're going into this deal thinking they got to outscore teams? Or where do you think their concern would be?
So Oregon, I don't think probably has a ton of concerns. I think they probably
because they're pretty physical.
They're pretty physical, and I think they're like, hey, if Dylan,
we played Ohio State in big, in marquee early season
they say, hey,
if
Dylan Gabriel stays healthy this year, we feel good.
What do you think USC's thinking?
God, we better get better on defense.
Okay, what do you think UCLA's thinking?
I have no idea what to expect from UCLA at all.
What do you think they're thinking though?
Probably
they ran the ball pretty well under Chip. I mean, quietly.
Did, yeah. I don't with Deshaun. I don't know. I'm guessing they think like, hey, we have to be physical. But
you think they're thinking offense or defense?
I'm thinking they have to run the ball. So offense.
If you're Colorado, are you thinking we better get better on offense or better on defense?
Well, I don't think Deion's a real logical guy, so I don't know.
Come on, man.
You're telling me you don't think Deion's going to go out there and be like, hey, Shedeur can outscore everybody?
Do you think they need to be better on offense or defense?
If they were logical, defense.
Okay. What about Washington? How did they make their run last year under DeBoer?
I mean, they were really good offensively.
All the close games they played, remember? Like they were barely getting by, and was it prolific? Because they went through a stretch where
they were really good. Washington was really good offensively.
Oh my gosh.
What?
I just.
Are you trying to tell me Washington wasn't good offensively last year?
It's not what I said, but I think what people thought would catch up with them is offensively they were a little inconsistent, especially when they were winning so many close games. Right, dude.
460 yards a game, 36
okay,
points
let's
per
just
game.
look at the
Which what I mean, what
the Washington scores, like just how the games were played.
Okay,
it's funny when you want to make an argument, we get to numbers. When I use numbers to the contrary, it's
you told me to look it up.
Yeah, just how the games were played. Like what kind of was the sentiment about Washington when they were making this climb? Were they going to be the 4th team? Were they going to be the 5th team? This, that, and the other. Right.
All right, I'm bringing up their schedule.
So I say all that to say, for as offensive minded as the rules are and the tempo is, I think the struggle that these new teams are going to have coming into this conference is either in the trenches or on the defensive side of the ball. And those are teams that historically have been pretty okay on offense.
Yeah, I think that
some of it is how the conference lends itself. I mean, not everybody can be Ohio State and be high flying and super talented and still win games late in November, and even to their peer, because they really only have one in the conference. And Michigan will say, well, we're the standard bearer now. They still can't match them physically or on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
It's just kind of weird. And I can say that and say, man, I do know that Saban said, hey, listen, if we want to compete on the national level, we got to get better offensively. That's right. We bring in Kiffin and we understand tempo. And people didn't like Georgia's offense against Bama when it counted, right? It was like their margin for error was less. But,
too much had to go right for them to be able to get points.
Right. I mean, somehow this team still rushes for 40 touchdowns a game. When you think Notre Dame, and I get it, their schedule is poo, but they play really good defense and they run the football. And they have good wideouts too.
Yeah, and I mean Sam Hartman was good last year.
So I just think for all the talk, I think a lot of it is because Nebraska was so bad offensively. It's the easy place to start. But I think you have to take a look at where are we currently with our ingredients and what does this conference call for?
Okay, but it's the same thing with Nebraska that you're kind of talking about with the newbies, right? Like if you're Nebraska, what do you look at and say, hey, this is where we need to get better?
Well, but according to you just get out of bed and can be better on offense, just given the fact that
I think with the work they've done and the pieces they've acquired, then yes, they should automatically be better at offense.
Yeah,
they've done a lot of that work.
I don't discount that though.
Like
I'm with you.
They still have to get better and learn how to execute consistently and do all those things. But just by the changes they've made from last year to this year, whether that's adding Gled Thomas, whether that's actual personnel in terms of the actual players, like you've seen them address a lot of the issues. We said, hey, we don't like that wide receiver room. They go out and get Banks and Nair and Barney. And
I know one thing, you have a fit if they go out there and throw this thing 42 times a game.
I don't want them to throw it 42 times a game.
So,
but
I want you to be better, but I want you to play this way because I think this is what will win us the most games.
Well, okay, but being better offensively doesn't just have to be passing the ball. Like, yes, that's the easiest place for them to get better because they were so bad at it.
Run the ball in the red zone.
Yeah, but run the ball better in the red zone. But the passing game also lets you run the ball better in the red zone because guess what? When things got crowded, that's when the quarterbacks really, really struggled. And so if Nebraska doesn't
so you'd rather be able to throw the ball better in the red zone or run the ball better?
I'd rather be able to throw the ball better in general so that people have to be honest on the run game in the red zone.
Okay.
Like Nebraska,
it may not. Throwing the ball in the red zone may not be as critical with the condensed field anyway, because you don't have room.
Right, but
so that's
so last year when Nebraska,
that probably isn't as much concept as it is accuracy delivering.
Right, yeah, that's a personnel issue.
Okay,
yeah, that's not a schematic deal.
Okay,
but like Nebraska's quarterbacks, I don't think saw the field very well when it got condensed. So they made a lot of mistakes in the passing game, whether it was incompletions, just missing, whether it was throwing picks. We saw a lot of turnovers down there. But if you have that part where you're like, hey, I know this guy can make that throw, I have to be honest on him.
So were you saying
then I think you're better running the ball in the red zone?
Do you think our fans were like, man, if he just threw the ball if he was just more accurate, or do you think they were thinking, man, run the ball?
I think fans were probably like, run the ball.
Okay.
But if he had completed those passes, they're not complaining.
Yeah, because I just remember, I remember vividly saying those concepts aren't difficult. Oh, man, you just covering for the coaches or this. I mean,
No, because they would get guys open.
Yeah.
Like the concepts were
And
good.
I was like, this isn't fairly, this isn't
This is a throw you have to be able to make.
This is if then. You just read the number 2, and
Yeah,
and it was like, just run the ball.
These are reads and throws you have to be able to make as a high-level college quarterback.
So basically, we just care about what the results are.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what fans care about, the results.
Okay.
And if those passes have been completed, they're not yelling, run the ball. And if they're not.
Oh,
I
know.
So it's not about, to me, it's not about how fans view it, because it is very results-oriented. To me, it's about, hey, if you're a defense and you're like, this guy's not going to make the right read, he's not going to be able to make that throw, then you can load up on the run in the red zone, because you don't think, what did we just talk about on defense, right? You give you guys, especially at Westside, what is the thing that that you'll give the offense? The thing that you don't think they can consistently execute, right?
Yeah,
So what did every team give Nebraska in the red zone? Hey, if you could throw the ball in the red zone, congratulations, you win.
Yeah.
Right? So they're loading up on the run. That's why Nebraska would call some of those pass plays, because they're like, we got 9 guys in the box.
Mm-hmm.
We have to call a pass play here, and they couldn't execute it. If you've got a guy that can execute those plays in the red zone, whether it's, we're assuming Dylan Raiola, right? If he can make those plays in the red zone, then all of a sudden, hey, there's not 9 guys in the box anymore, and it's going to be easier to run the ball in the red zone.
I get it.
Right? Like, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's probably not as linear as that.
It's not.
But
I understand what you're saying.
If this, then that, right?
Because I think at the end of the day, when you get into the red zone, it's not the defense played against you isn't predicated on whether you can throw the ball or not. It's condensed. You're not going to run the ball. You see more pressures. I mean, shoot, man. Iowa only blitzes 30% of the time, but 70%
is in the red
zone. In the money zone, right?
Yeah.
So it's like things change down there.
Sure. But if you can't execute in the passing game, you make your life a lot more difficult in both phases of the offense.
Yeah.
In both passing and running. Like, you're not going to score very much down there. And Nebraska didn't. Like, that's the result of not being able to execute there. Coming up next, we've still got some college baseball wrap-up to talk at 9:45. Who knows what we'll talk about at 9:30? I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
To this day. We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage.
What if TK's right and Emmett goes for 1K? Will you be like, are you being misrepresented with the running backs?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think the running game last year had more to do with the offensive line than it did the running backs. I thought the running backs were fine. I didn't see anything special in that room. I thought they, for the most part, got what was there, and that was it. Where you get that next level where you go from average to pretty good or really good is, hey, I can make one guy miss, so I take a 4-yard run, turns into 7
That's
or 8.
really the thing.
Right. And then if you go from like, hey, that's a good running back to a great running back is, hey, I make the first guy miss, and then I accelerate into the second level, and then you've got
if that free defender is like not at the first level.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And I'm assuming because they're getting 4.5 yards a carry, and I didn't think the running backs were special, that the offensive line is taking pretty good care of the first level, right? Is that fair?
I mean, I have to look at it in its totality.
Yeah, but just like off the top of your head,
generally
it feels about right.
Yeah.
Okay. So my thought is, I thought the running backs in general were average, fine, however you want to put it. But if you've got a guy,
That's fine.
whether it's, Dowdell, whether it's Emmett Johnson, whether it's Gabe Ervin, whether it's Ramir Johnson, whether it's Mekhi Nelson, if you've got a guy that can start making that free defender miss after that initial run, then you get into something like genuinely, I don't know if specials, right? But like you get into it from a solid, good running game to this can be our staple, right? And being able to throw the ball probably makes that a little easier for that group as well, right? So I think as the offensive line gets better, like, yes, maybe that goes from 4.5 to 4.8.
See, I do think that's how you have to think, because even if like you're playing Colorado, I think the goal would be to just beat them up.
Yeah. That's what Nebraska's goal should be, is to beat people's brains in. And then if you've got a quarterback or a running
sometimes
back
don't. I just feel like we don't really. It's almost like calling yourself a developmental program. I think if that's what you want, which I do think it's what we desire, especially like we don't want to try to outscore. And I'm not willing to concede. And listen, Ohio State, I get it. People think they're absolutely loaded. I just heard, which I was a little surprised. Maybe it was like subtle heat. To hear Urban Meyer
say it's the best roster they've had.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he likes Ryan Day.
That is interesting.
Like, I kind of get a vibe. It's like, you're doing my job.
He has been a better recruiter. It hasn't yielded the results.
Yeah.
Although it's hard to. Urban Meyer had some D lines.
I thought his D-line recruiting was better than Ryan Day's has been. Ryan Day's offensive skill position recruiting has been insane.
Although, remember, what year was
but
that?
It's not like Urban wasn't getting dudes.
What year was that Zeke ran over Bama? Was it 14?
Yes. Yeah, because it was the second.
Because that offensive
second year of the playoff,
that offensive line was pretty good.
Too. So it would have been 15. Second year of the playoff was 15, I think.
And I remember the first year he went 12-0 when they were under the ban. Was
Braxton Miller.
Was probably the greatest coaching job.
It's his best coaching job. That was not a super talented team.
But they
won a bunch of close games that year.
Loves this roster. I still want to see. I guess I have to get it right, because I said this a couple weeks ago. But it's not your best collection of wide receivers, and it's not your best quarterback room.
No. Now it'll be interesting to see how the quarterback room fits with how Chip Kelly's going to call it. That'll be interesting to see, because I don't know.
Yeah,
because there's some
we talk about. I mean, you have two of the top. I mean, their backs are.
And there's, Will Howard's skill set might be a better fit with Chip Kelly than some of the better quarterbacks they've had, right? So maybe maybe the fit makes up for the talent.
At some point, I should probably take a deep dive and look at his offensive line play versus the body types that Ohio State has.
Chip Kelly?
Yeah, because I thought their athleticism lacked a little bit.
And he usually
and he needs
my perception of him is that he needs quick athletic offensive linemen.
Yeah. And they just were getting I mean, Michigan, you gotta go back and watch those games up front. Michigan was incredible.
Yeah, Michigan kind of got whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
And I didn't think,
although you gotta go back and appreciate Michigan's run scheme too. Like, I was surprised they only ran for $170 a game. Some of the cool stuff they do, I remember talking about it real time during the broadcast. Now, granted, they had a great running backs coach too, so maybe they'll miss Mike Hart, because they ran the way that they ran.
I know they'll miss Jim Harbaugh. Like, Jim Harbaugh's a pretty good coach. Like, say whatever else you will about him, he's a weirdo.
Hey, you're not getting any pushback from me. He's fantastic.
I don't understand why we're just I think Michigan's still like 9.5, 10 wins.
What? Wait, what, Shane?
That's no big deal.
Are you getting ready to add something?
Mike
Hart was under.
He was, yeah.
The way that those backs ran, and Corman, they're good. They're
good
clearly
backs.
right.
Yeah.
But they all kind of ran the same. They got down to like their fourth or fifth back against us.
About ran the same.
And they ran the same.
And
different body types too.
I don't know why. I don't know why we're just assuming 10 wins for Michigan when they lost a lot and Jim Harbaugh's a really good football coach.
Because defensively, they have an NFL defender at every level.
That's fair.
Every level.
But
and you have two in the secondary. You have three along the D line. You have one on the second level. Or did I say second level?
I'll take it.
Third level. You have two on the third level minimum. And that's safety and corner.
And they could be really good there.
And Mason Graham will make the case that he may be the best in the conference.
At some point, not having I mean, like Sharon Moore might be a really good football coach, and he probably isn't going to be.
Although he did win a lot.
He did win some last year, but like Harbaugh was still coaching practices and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like so, like it's. I don't want to overvalue what Moore did last year
or under.
Well, I don't want to undervalue Harbaugh. I don't want to overvalue the fact that, like, in game, I thought Moore did a good job filling in for Harbaugh, but like Harbaugh's influence is still all over that team.
Yeah, but let's not. Did you watch us in game sometimes?
Yeah, I understand.
All right, let's not discount
not poo-pooing in game. I am saying you can't give 100% credit to what we saw in those games to Moore.
Okay.
Because a lot of the prep was still done by Harbaugh.
I don't 100% say or do anything. Like, I'm just having the conversation. Like, I just
whatever Sharon Moore turns out to be as a head football coach, it probably won't be this year. That's all. And like first year head coach, probably not the best version of himself yet. And for Michigan to reach with everything they lost a decent amount of stuff.
Where are they? 9.5?
I think they're at 9.5 or 10. I don't think. I mean, most people don't do the push, but I think it's at 9.5.
I'm curious. I just want to pit them against Oregon.
I mean, I don't know what Oregon's is off the top of my head.
I'm just looking at it now.
But I think we're assuming a lot for Michigan there. You're losing a really good head coach. You're losing a first round quarterback, even if I thought 10 was high for him or 8, whatever he went. Even though I thought that was high for him, like he was still a first round quarterback. You lose Corum, who'd been a really good running back. You lose Roman Wilson, who'd been a really good wide receiver. And that's just on the offensive side of the ball. I'm having a hard time not believing that doesn't have an impact.
So currently at Vegas Insider, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 teams with a win total above 10.
Okay.
Who are they?
I'm going to say Georgia.
Correct.
I'm going to say Ohio State.
Correct.
I'm going to say probably Bama still. No?
Incorrect.
I'm going to
One is the aforementioned when I said I wanted to pit them against Michigan.
Oregon.
Correct.
Yeah. What am I at, 3?
You said
is
Georgia.
I said
Ohio
Georgia,
State,
Ohio State, Oregon.
There's 3 more and 1 you're not going to get. Because they are not Power 5.
Okay. Let's see who else.
The other 2 are 1. I just said I know they don't play anybody. I said it probably 3 segments ago.
Oh, I don't remember. Was it?
Who am I missing?
Oh, it's not Utah, is it?
Notre Dame.
Oh, Notre Dame. That's right. And then you said one's non-Power 5, so I'm not going to get that one.
I'm surprised at this one because of the conference move, but their schedule is still fairly advantageous.
Texas?
Correct.
Yeah.
You know what the last one is? Liberty.
That makes sense. I'm a
Liberty.
big Chadwell guy.
Yeah. Whatever the hell it is.
K-State is at 9.5.
That seems a little high.
I'm telling you.
Although, I don't know what the Big 12 is.
Well, yeah.
So maybe it's not high.
And you only have one team that has a double-digit win total. But Utah's right there.
Where are they? 9.5?
9.5.
Yeah.
But Texas leads the way. I mean, it's shaded a little towards the under. It's minus 140.
I would take Utah. I'd have to look at their schedule, but with Cam Rice,
you loved Utah's schedule. Remember, we only got 3 possibles. We didn't even have a.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I've got Utah over 9.5 feels good. Not as good as Iowa over 7.5, but
yeah, I think the maybe we gave them was at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, which I'll take that as a maybe. Like if that's your coin flip game, like you're in pretty good shape.
You're on the road late at Colorado, which could be beat up by then, and you're on the road at Central Florida.
Yeah, and I think we're giving Central Florida too much credit there. I don't know. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Phil Stanton, college baseball insider. Put a bow on the College World Series here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Swing and a miss. And for the first time, Rocky Top reaches the mountaintop of college baseball. They are the World Series champions.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, and we're joined by Phil Stanton of collegebaseballinsider.com. Phil, how are you this morning?
I am doing well. How are you?
We're hanging in there, man. I mean, it's a Rocky Top kind of morning, man. So it's just like, that's a heck of a run. I look at this team, Phil, and I hate to go all cliche and use the term fit, but we're looking at the leadership at the top, right? And it's well documented. You know, Votella was a Missouri guy and didn't get that job, and for whatever the reason is, if you believe the stories, but he lands at Tennessee, and just this personality and the guys that he's been able to recruit. How important was fit and timing for Votella on this run?
Oh, I think it was everything. I think for all the players to buy in, they had to get those guys who were blue-collar players. A lot of the players, and Tony used the word grit, and that's a really good description for the way that they play. But, you know, everybody had to buy in, and they did. And they've had some strong teams here in recent years, but finally this year they had good leadership from the coaches, but from the players as well. And I mean, the whole team really is a reflection of Tony. And when he came in, he wanted to change that culture. It reminds me a lot of what Skip Bertman did when he first got to LSU. You look around and see where the successful programs are, and you say, I want to emulate them. And so that's what Tony did when he took over at Tennessee. And now this is the culmination.
Phil, I'm wondering, as you know, we talk about Tony Vitello and the way he's viewed nationally, and both by fans and media. He's kind of a divisive guy. What does this do for his, I guess, reputation? Because there's been a lot of talk about, despite how good Tennessee's been over the last few years, about him underachieving a little bit and not either getting to Omaha or breaking through once he got here. What does this do for Tony V?
Well, I think one thing that it shows, it is so difficult to win a national championship.
Yeah.
And the coaches had said too, it's difficult just to get to Omaha, to be able to work through a regional and a super regional, and stop and think of some of the really, really good teams that didn't make it. Arkansas, one of the best pitching staffs in the country, number 5 national seed. They weren't able to get out of their regional. I think, you know, especially a couple of years ago, I think they were really looked at as the villains. And there were so many people that, you know, that just didn't like them from their approach and all. I think they've toned down a little bit, but still they have that edge to them. I think this shows that you can have that type of player, that type of mentality, and be able to win it all. So I think I think people knew that he was a really good coach. I think that cements it now. And now that he's gotten this national championship, he's going to have that fire to say, well, I want to get another one.
When you're taking a look at how fine a line is it for you, for Tony? We mentioned kind of letting him be his guys, and he's got his own style and recruiting to his personality. And then being secure in, because he listens to the media. I get it, but I don't get the rabbit ears either. It seems like he's more defending his guys. How fine a line is it between letting your guys be who they are and still understanding that there's a pecking order on the totem pole as the head coach?
Well, I think that's something that he's learned. I think that, you know, a couple of years ago, they had more of an edge to them, and I think they did some things that really rubbed fans and media the wrong way. I think they've been able to control that more, and you didn't have the same incidents this year that you saw a couple of years ago. But I think you know, you still can have those guys that are going to go out there, play hard. They're gonna be able to show their personalities. But I think it's really key, really, for the whole coaching staff, and it obviously starts with Tony, but it also carries down to the assistants, that you still want to respect the game, you still want to, you know, play it the right way. So that, you know, they're going to have those talks, I think, internally with players if they see something that they don't think is respectful. But they definitely want those guys still to play with that edge.
Phil, are we having a different conversation this morning if Braden Montgomery doesn't get hurt for Texas A&M?
Possibly, and really, when Texas A&M had such really good offense through their first 4 games, he could have really made a difference in these last 2. The offense just was not as potent in games 2 and 3. Now, part of that was, you know, you got to give credit to Tennessee's pitching, and they may have been able to keep him under control. I still think Tennessee would have won, even if Montgomery had played. I think they still would have come out on top.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're talking about the degree of difficulty, and it doesn't matter, you know, Stanley Cup, College World Series, NBA. There takes a certain degree of fortune, right? One is health. Some things just have to go your way. When you look at the check swing, no check swing, Tennessee moved right along. Didn't even think about it. Hey, it's part of baseball. But the ability to capitalize the very next couple of at-bats kind of gets undersold in that discussion. How much do you think has to do with that mental approach to the game, that unapologetic approach to the game that we've kind of been talking about?
Oh, I think that's a huge part of it. I think there's that confidence, that cockiness that, we're not going to give anything. That was not a check swing, so the inning just keeps going. I mean, when you think back to those first 2 days, I mean, so easily Tennessee and Texas A&M could have lost if Texas A&M doesn't get the rob of a home run.
Yeah.
We might have had Florida and Florida State playing for the national championship. So I think that was just the way those first 4 games went. I think it showed how close all of those teams are. But you ended up with the top 4 seeds were the ones that were able to get it done, those first 2 days. And so I think, for Tennessee, they're probably internally, they were thinking, man, we may have stolen that one. But once you have that win, now it's look ahead. We want to we want to go ahead and win our bracket, and then we want to get into that championship series.
Phil, I want to move over to the Texas opening and that whole situation there. There was a rumor that Jim Schlossnagle they were interested in him for that job. And, obviously he addressed that after the game last night. But in general, you look at that Texas job, and it's not like David Pierce was doing terrible. He had 3 College World Series appearances in the 7 non-COVID years that he was at Texas. Where do you think that job goes? Where do you think they're looking there?
I think they will look at every top coach.
Yeah.
I'm sure they've got a pecking order, and I think it will be done quietly, that they'll either, those coaches that have agents, they'll talk to those agents. So there'll be a lot of discussions that never become public, but I think they talk with Tony Vitello. I think they at least, make an inquiry to Jim Schlossnagle. I think Brian O'Connor, Kevin O'Sullivan, Jay Johnson, Tom Walter.
Jay Johnson is a good one.
I think they're going to talk to everybody, because their thought is, hey, we're Texas. We're one of the elite programs in the history of college baseball. So they are going to shoot for the top. They are going to be able to offer a really strong salary to it. So I think eventually, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly they're able to move. But I think they're going to end up with a big name head coach that will end up moving down there, and it really will be an exciting time for a coach to be able to take over, because now they're moving into the SEC.
Yeah.
They want to be able to get back to where they're a competitor, that they're up into that elite of the SEC, which puts them in the elite of the country.
That's Phil Stanton from collegebaseballinsider.com. Phil, we appreciate your time, and hope you enjoyed the College World Series.
Oh, it was fantastic. Had a great time, and we were talking in the press box yesterday. We'll see everybody in 50 weeks.
Yeah, there we go.
Appreciate it, Phil.
All right, thank you, guys.
That's Phil Stanton from collegebaseballinsider.com. Yeah, I was gonna ask him about how much that SEC factor played into the decision to move on to Pierce, because he was pretty good. I know he wasn't maybe up to what Texas standards was, but 3 College World Series since 2018. They had a real opportunity this year to get out of that A&M regional. They weren't bad. They were not struggling the way you would maybe think to move on from a guy like Pierce.
Yeah, it's just interesting, man. College baseball just continues to go. They just go pluck a great coach from another sitting coach.
Yeah.
No big deal.
When LSU did that to Notre Dame in football, the world was ending. Or when Lincoln Riley went from Oklahoma to USC, it's just what happens in college baseball.
It's we want them, we'll pay.
Yeah, it's a whole different wild west out there. That's the show for today. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.